It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. A great panel for you. Clayton Morris, Tim Stevens from Engadget, John C. Dvorak, Brian Brushwood. We're going to try to figure out what is Microsoft planning on its big announcement tomorrow. We'll talk about Apple's big announcement last week and what went wrong at Nokia. It's all coming up next on TWiT.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by the new Winamp for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Video bandwidth for TWiT is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 358, recorded June 17th, 2012, massaged by a hot dog vendor. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Go to Assist from Citrix. Take control of your IT world from one simple cloud-based platform. Provide live or unattended support for all your users anywhere. Sign up for your 30-day free trial today at gotoassist.com. Use the promo code TWiT. And by Audible.com. Sign up for the Platinum Plan and get 2 free books at audible.com/TWiT2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter. User ID Audible_com. And by Ford, featuring the My Ford Mobile smartphone app for electric vehicles. The My Ford Mobile app makes the electric driving experience fun and efficient. Learn more about Ford electric vehicle technologies at ford.com/technology. And by FreshBooks, the easy online invoicing app for small businesses that saves time and gets you paid faster. Join over 3.5 million FreshBooks users and try the service free for 30 days of unlimited use at freshbooks.com. Make sure you tell them you heard about it on TWiT. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. This week we're going to be very serious. We're going to be very somber. We're going to be full of useful information. We're going to be meaty. And that's because we have a very meaty panel this week, starting with the very serious Brian Brushwood. Okay. So he's the outlier.
I'm glad you labeled me as very serious and not very meaty, because I'm very sensitive about my weight right now. I've been doing a lot of stress eating lately. Brian
Brushwood, the magician, the host of NSFW on our TWiT network and Scam School on Revision 3. How's Discovery treating you?
You know, I haven't seen any changes yet. I'm excited to actually, I know that I feel jealous hearing about all these Discovery events. They did some kind of like Make the World Better Day at Rev 3, and I didn't get invited just because I'm 8 states away from you, I guess.
Yeah, it was in, I saw Veronica and everybody, they were cleaning up beaches or something. It was very cool.
Yeah, they were rubbing hermit crabs and giving them massages.
That's good. It's good. And you're a dad.
Yes, I am.
So happy Father's Day.
2.5 times over. We got one cooking right now.
Hey, congratulations.
Wow. Yeah, I'm
I
very
didn't know
excited.
that. So Bonnie's expecting.
Yes, she
Bonnie is your wife, right?
The invisible wife. The alleged invisible wife, who may or may not exist.
Also here, another dad, Mr. John C. Dvorak of ChannelDvorak.com. Good to see you. Well fed today. We brought him a roast beef sandwich, and you have a bottle of Pellegrino still.
Of course,
unopened,
yes.
Sealed in the mint in the bottle.
Yeah, somebody I think opened it and spit in it.
Chad, I've been asking you not to do that.
One more time, Leo.
Also with us, Tim Stevens, who's the editor-in-chief of Engadget. It's good to see you. Welcome back, Tim.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
We love having you on the show. And finally, all the way to the right, perfectly positioned, Mr. Clayton Morris of Fox and Friends. He's the
all the way to the right. That's a good one.
Well, he is. He's on the right-hand side of the screen.
Surprised.
Yes.
And I'm wearing my Sirius T-shirt today.
I like that.
Sirius Day.
Are you excited about Batman Rising? It opens in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Dark Knight Rises in an exclusive iOS app, I think, that's coming out very, very soon, too. Apparently, there was already an exclusive one for Nokia, for the Lumia. You could get the Dark Knight Rises, I don't know, some sort of game trailer thing that's only exclusive on the Nokia, and so it's supposed to be fantastic.
This is the hot new thing. I just paid 99 cents. I don't even know why I'm paying for a special version of, what is that tomb running game? The running.
Temple
Run. That's got a Disney Brave edition.
So you're the girl in Brave, and instead of being chased by monkeys, you're chased by a bear. And I paid $1 extra.
Oh, my.
Wow.
A whole $1.
For an ad.
That's the first game. That's
They should have paid you $1.
The first Pixar movie that's targeted to women. So no wonder you decided to shell out the extra $1 for that.
Because I also am targeted to women. It's not working.
Exactly.
So I'm sorry. I couldn't resist that joke. Now, see, already we veered off from the serious, deep content that I was going for on this week. And I apologize. Let's start with tomorrow, because there's a big announcement tomorrow, and everybody's wondering what's going on. Microsoft sent out invites to all of you, I'm sure. By the way, Tim, you're a dad, right?
I didn't get an invite, I might add.
Tim, are you a dad?
I did get an invite, but I'm not a dad. No.
Oh, so you can't. Sorry, but everybody else is a father. Happy Father's Day. You'll be a dad soon enough. So you got an invite to the Microsoft event. Tell me what the invite said.
Did you not get one?
No.
I didn't get one
It said
either.
basically nothing, which is very, very strange. It didn't even have a location on it, which is very odd. The event takes place tomorrow in Los Angeles, and they wouldn't even tell you where. They gave you a time. They said at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Show up
we'll
if
tell
you
where
find
you
it.
need to be.
How are they going to tell you? Are they going to text you? Is this
Right, that's what I want to know.
a scavenger hunt?
We don't know. We were trying to get more information to find out if this was going to be the kind of thing we'd want to live blog. We're totally in the dark here about the venue or the size of this event, or who's going to be there. You know, are they going to bring Usher out again? We can only hope. We really don't know anything at all about it, but, you know, we're going to be there tomorrow. We're going to be live blogging. We're excited to find out exactly what they have to show for us.
So
It's a major announcement they've got.
You did decide a live blog. So that's because Paul Thurrott, our Windows Weekly guy, said his invitation, I don't know if it was printed on the invitation or they said it afterwards in an email or something, said, you're not going to want to miss this.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to miss
We
this.
don't
You
want to
wanna
miss
get
it.
out here. And it was only like a few days' notice, right, Tim? I think we got the invitations like on Thursday or
Wednesday or
something like
Thursday,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
toward the
it's
end of
really
the day on
difficult.
Thursday, which is not a lot of time to be booking your flights out to LA. And the crazy thing is they have another event in San Francisco that starts the very next day. Why they couldn't just push their event up one day and have them both in the same city,
Well,
I have no idea. It's
and
pretty
they had E3 just 2 weeks ago in Los
Right.
Angeles, a big entertainment event.
Yeah.
But Tim, it's interesting. So you guys at Engadget thought, we don't know what this is, but we think it's significant enough we're going to live blog it.
Yes, yeah. Everything that we're hearing is that it's going to be something big. The reports we've been hearing over the past few days from TechCrunch and also from All Things D is that it's something to do with the tablet announcement, perhaps to do with Barnes & Noble, and perhaps this will be the first time we really see some proper Xbox Live integration on a tablet. This kind of early, 24 hours from now. We don't have anything solid yet, but the quote-unquote inside sources are indicating that this will be tablet-related and something to do with Xbox Live and Barnes & Noble.
Are you going to
So
fly
why if
out,
it's
Clayton?
Xbox Live?
You were just out here, weren't you, Clayton?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, if it's Xbox Live, to your point,
Why
Leo,
did they
about
wait?
E3,
Right.
I mean, why? I mean, you had everyone there. You had everyone there a week ago for E3 if it's Xbox related. And we saw this broader integration on Xbox is really almost like a cable box killer, so to speak, this past week. So if you're going to do some sort of broader entertainment infusion in the Xbox, you would have done it during E3. There's speculation, and I'm curious. There's been rumors all over the map, right? The Barnes & Noble rumor, I think, is the latest one right now.
Yeah, some people
And
said it would be more of a consumption device like a Fire,
I
the
was under
Amazon's version of the Fire. Others are saying, I see eWeek is saying it's a Windows 8 tablet, which is not a Fire. I mean, it is literally, you couldn't have a broader range of speculation on this.
I think they're all missing the possibility that it's the Zune 2.
I think we know the Zune is dead. There's no way it's a Zune.
I got some breaking news on this actually just in that Microsoft tomorrow is going to announce 3D maps.
Yes, that would only be fitting since Google and Apple have in successive weeks done that. Week 3, I think 3D for Bing. No, Bing has had 3D, haven't they?
Yeah,
Bing 3D.
Bing has a pretty good
big
3D.
draw.
Well, okay, so tell me this, guys. If let's say that the Xbox part of this announcement is just a small, let's say it's a bigger announcement about an ecosystem in which the Xbox plays a smaller role, then it would make sense for them not to include that in the E3 announcement because nobody's going to be there to find out that the Xbox is now going to be a piece of this bigger event or bigger overshadowing thing that's going to ruin their games-related press event.
right. But we already saw
absolutely. The Xbox these days is as much a media consumption device as it is a gaming device. So this could be a very media-focused event. And Xbox is kind of their broad terminology for media services of all sorts. So perhaps it's just another way to access the same content that you currently buy through your Xbox, and now you get it on a tablet.
So it's a smart glass, second screen tablet. Will Microsoft, is this going to be a Microsoft reference design, as in the past, a reference design that they'll have Toshiba and others make, or is this going to be manufactured by Microsoft, Tim?
That is the big question that we are eagerly waiting to find out. I honestly, you know, having them develop their own tablet, manufacture their own tablet, I don't know if they're ready to jump right in there. But although they did just interestingly say to HTC, you know, we don't really want you to make any tablets for us. So,
well, that's interesting.
Would be interesting. I honestly don't know. Maybe this will be the unveiling of the Nokia tablet we've been waiting for so long for.
That would be a very bad idea.
Well, they need a push, right?
This whole thing is a bad idea.
But, you know, look, I think, you know, Tim brings up a great point, and it also furthers the argument as to whether or not this is going to be a problem for Microsoft if they do roll out their own hardware. We saw this with Google, right, embracing their own hardware for Android, and you have all of these OEMs say, wait a second, you know, are we going to get preference now? We're not going to get preference in the store. We're not going to be on the front page of Google.com like this particular piece of hardware. And it also, I think, raises a specter of, and you hear some other companies talking about the possibility and showing some renewed interest in WebOS. Does this open the door for the
WebOS?
WebOS. Hearing some different.
I thought WebOS was dead. This is the Palm, then HP operating system. All the engineers left for Google.
Right, but if they're going to be showing preference for hardware, does this open the door for other hardware manufacturers to say, you know what, there is a very capable, a very interesting and very capable piece of software that's out there that we can get our hands on? And I've been hearing some interesting things about that lately.
It is open source.
I want to argue against this concept. I think Microsoft is going to bring out a branded product. They do have a branded product. It's called the Xbox.
Right.
Nobody's going to license this thing. They're not going to be stepping on channels. And they need something to sell in these stores, which they're rolling out like crazy, and they need something with their own brand on it. They're really following Apple's model. I would be stunned if what they don't bring out is going to be branded Microsoft, and I think when they do buy Nokia, which they will brand themselves as there will be a Microsoft phone, and they won't be licensing the Windows or the Windows Phone 7 to anybody. I really think they're turning back in on themselves. It's the only thing that's going to make them any money.
In other words, it's Apple envy.
It's always Apple envy.
Are you saying that there's no merit to any of the suggestions that Xbox is going to have anything to do with the announcement? Because if
I'm not saying that.
I think it's going to be an Xbox device.
It's going to be in there.
So you got an Xbox set-top box, and you're going to have an Xbox handheld.
And you have to remember, they're not licensing the Xbox to anybody. I think Microsoft's given up on the idea that anybody wants their stuff.
So Tim, I'm curious because why
Xbox is sitting. Microsoft is sitting in a gold mine with the Xbox, with the level of permeation they have or penetration into American homes. This device is so overpowered for all the things that people want to use. People are going out and they're using their Google TVs. It's ridiculous that the Xbox is not filling all these niches on their own. And if Microsoft is smart, what they'll do is come out with a surprise announcement about this entire ecosystem where you don't need to get a Sling box because the Xbox will handle it. You don't have to get an Apple TV because Xbox is already doing it. You can stream anything to your tablet anywhere you are, but through the Xbox. They need to think of the Xbox as more than a gaming device, and I'm hoping that they'll step up and make that happen.
Clayton?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just curious why they would bring everyone back a week later for virtually, well, maybe not virtually, but close to the same sort of announcement that we saw on stage from them.
I can tell you why. Because I think that they probably felt there was too much noise at E3. You've got Sony, you've got Nintendo. It's focused on gaming. They did do the preliminary announcement, which is smart glass. Second screens are going to be big. This is the second shoe dropping, and I think they probably wanted to have it all to themselves. I think John's right with the Apple envy. They want secrecy. They're trying to do an Apple event.
Right.
That's what they're trying to do. And you do it by yourself. You don't do it with a lot of noise around you. You don't do it as one of a bunch of other press conferences.
I think Apple would at least put where the venue is.
I think it may be such short notice that they couldn't get a venue. I don't understand.
We'll be at the Hilton at the airport.
We don't know where we're going to be, but as soon as
it's going to be a big geocaching game. They're going to hand us all Garmin geocaching devices, and we're going to have to navigate our way around the city to find out where this thing is.
Isn't it amazing, Tim, to see all these different sites with such widely varying points of view? The Wrap and All Things Digital say it's going to be a Windows 8 Windows RT tablet. TechCrunch says they're mostly wrong. It's going to be a Barnes & Noble Nook kind of a thing. Then you have eWorld saying something else. You've got The Guardian saying Microsoft's going to launch a tablet to compete with the iPad.
And here's one that's an interesting idea. Somebody just kind of suggested it. The Nokia Theater is where the event will be, and it will incorporate a Nokia announcement. It's a big theater that do a lot of events at.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's where the Nintendo press conference was at E3, where it typically is. It's entirely possible that they are all right in some way. I mean, it could be a Windows RT device, but running some very customized interface, just like the Kindle Fire is running Android, but you'd really never know it. So it certainly could be a Barnes & Noble branded device running Windows RT over, or behind some very thick layer that makes it very media friendly, just again like the Kindle Fire or the Barnes & Noble Nook. So it's hard to know exactly who's right. It's interesting to see all this conflicting information, and for once Microsoft has a really good secret, and we're looking forward to seeing what it is.
I
tomorrow.
think so. That some of the confusion about this reflects the confusion about Microsoft in general, the confusion within and without Microsoft in general. We don't know what the hell they're doing because
or where
no
they're
one
doing
does. Or where they're doing it.
I know why they're being so secretive.
Why?
And especially like 24 hours to the event, they still didn't even say where it's going to be. It's because that's the only possible way Microsoft could get their story to be the lead instead of WWDC on this program.
They did it. They succeeded. It was the lead story because I love that spec. You buy on the rumor, you sell on the news, right? So we're buying on the rumor.
Well, what's the incentive for it to be a Barnes & Noble device? I mean,
I don't think
moving
that's
away.
I don't think that's it.
I'm just curious. Why would they go that route?
I think John's right. The Xbox is the brand. If you're going to do something, you're going to Microsoft brand it. It's going to be the Xbox. That's the brand they own and control. And they've already made some big strides forward with the Xbox. You know what? You do it in L.A. because it's an entertainment capital. Maybe you have on stage with you Sony, Universal. You have all the big players.
Companies, maybe.
You have the movie companies. You have the music companies. You have the networks. You have them on stage with you saying, we are going to make a compelling home entertainment device that all starts with a Microsoft tablet and the Xbox 360. Does that sound?
Netflix people on the stage,
Netflix,
too.
you have Netflix on stage. They already support Netflix. They're the only, they support HBO Go. They're the only gaming box that supports
Hulu.
HBO Go. They already support Hulu. They're very close to having this unified thing put together. Tim, does that sound credible?
It sounds very credible. And really the one missing piece that they don't have in the Xbox is books. So maybe that's where Barnes & Noble comes in. They can bring their magazines and their selection of textbooks and everything else to the table. And that's the missing piece, perhaps, of this tablet device, the reading piece that they don't have. And interestingly, if indeed it is at the Nokia Theater, that's right next to ESPN. And Microsoft, of course, had a big ESPN announcement at E3. So maybe that'll be a part of this, too, having all 3 ESPN channels streaming right to your tablet.
Clayton, sound like are you coming back?
No, I would have, but with more than 4 days' notice and it not being Father's Day, it just I'm gonna fly out tonight. After Father's Day get together, it just doesn't really jive.
Why don't you have them pick you up in the private jet?
I got to say, Microsoft is not notorious for secrecy. In fact, they're the worst. How come they've been able to keep this a secret?
Because nobody cares
because
anymore.
They've seen it work time after time at Apple. Why wouldn't they? If somebody's running a money machine, sooner or later you figure out, like, hey, how's that money machine work?
Right.
Should I just, maybe I can post on that
they've
thing
tried to
this
keep it
day?
secrets before.
It's kind of brilliant.
They've never been any good at it.
Well, notice
Leo,
the
it's kind of
Xbox.
brilliant, though, to do it after E3, right? Because we're like, wait a second, we just got all of these announcements out of E3. We've got all these other announcements from Microsoft. So what in the world are they going to squeeze in between these other big announcements? That's the brilliance of it.
Zach says it's going to be the Nook Zunebox pad. I like this idea. I think
Lotus Notes on the Xbox.
In some ways, what we're saying is that all these rumors are true. That it is a Nook, but it's also an Xbox. It's going to be all of the above. I think that's an interesting, compelling argument. I don't think it's Windows 8 because Windows 8 is far from launch. We're not talking till October for Windows 8 to come out. Why do you have an event in June to announce an October product? I don't think it is Windows 8.
Office on iPad?
I think that's, in fact, I'm pretty sure we know that's going to be around October as well. They want to do Office, I think, somewhat after Windows 8, so it might even be November.
Right.
I don't think this is a. Well, and then we saw this leak. That's actually an old leak of the Xbox 720. The next generation. We do know that'll be out next year.
Photoshop.
Well, this is a memo. No, this is a memo.
Yeah, no, in fact, it got taken down by a law firm.
Yeah, and it has an Xbox 720.
That's pretty lame looking.
Violation.
It's a terrible name, and I hope they don't go through it. Xbox 360 conveys a wide-angle view where you see everything coming in all around you. Xbox 720 implies you're spinning around in circles.
Yeah, exactly. It
sounds like a
spinning
jet.
around. Oh, my God, it comes again.
They're going to have the Kinect 2, which will have devices like Nintendo Wiimote, I guess. You could put a little plastic bat in your hand. And then, Google has glasses, so we will too. Kinect glasses, Project Fortaleza.
I'm sticking with 3D maps.
I think you might be right.
Yeah.
I think you might be right.
I'll tell you what, regardless of whether these are good ideas or bad ideas, I love that these are real documents and that people are projecting what will home entertainment look like 10 years into the future.
Xbox
like,
666.
even if these are terrible ideas, the idea that it'll be augmented reality and you'll have holographic avatars walking around in virtual real space as you go to the mall.
But Microsoft's notorious for that. Aren't they, John? They're the company that always has the video about what you'll be doing in 20, Sister Sally will be doing her report. Remember, to the internet, to the cloud. I mean, this is what Microsoft does. They love these speculative, phony videos.
That's
almost as much as Apple.
They spend too much time at home.
But I wonder if these divisions
the Xbox 2600. I got it.
John, you brought up a great point. I mean, I'm always curious about Microsoft in this way, which is I always feel like one arm doesn't know what the other arm's doing. You've got like multiple PR companies for Microsoft that always don't necessarily talk, don't know that they talk to you.
They have a bunch of them
and you've got, you've got like the folks at Bing. I'm sure you've experienced this, right, where they've got Bing on their business card. There's no mention, as far as I remember,
it's actually
Microsoft.
Worse than that, Clayton. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. They know exactly what the other hand is doing, and they hate it. And they're going to kill it. They're warring within Microsoft. You've got all these divisions saying, over my dead body.
Somebody pointed out to me, it was kind of an interesting observation, which is that Microsoft and a lot of these high-tech companies, they're not really a one single firm like in the olden days where you'd have this. You'd make a Chrysler building and everybody be in the same building. Now it's a campus and with like colleges.
Well, and Google does it on purpose because they're trying to keep this entrepreneurial spirit. So you get the feeling that
makes more sense. Yeah. But with Microsoft, there was no unity because you're not even in the same building with these people. You have to take a bus to the other area of the campus.
If you want to look into Microsoft's future, look at Sony, because Sony is just 20 years ahead of schedule of exactly what Microsoft is doing right now. You essentially balkanize all these individual elements, and you essentially put them at war with each other. Sony in the late 90s was putting out hardware devices that directly violated the copyright of their software division. It's the or their music licensing division. I think you're going to start to see more and more of that with Microsoft unless we see some fundamental shift in the corporate culture, which I don't smell coming anytime soon.
You saw the Techno Buffalo. This is kind of old, but I love it. And somebody in the chat room was mentioning the Techno Buffalo org chart. Amazon, very nice hierarchical. Google, all over the place. Facebook, it's a network. Microsoft, it's a bunch of divisions pointing guns at each other. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it.
They encourage
it's sort of like what we heard that really interesting story about what was happening at RIM.
Oh God, but that happens, right? When a company's falling apart, everybody starts blaming the other guy, and that's why I think tomorrow could be maybe a very important day for Apple, for Microsoft, because if they can pull all these disparate things together into a device that's a compelling device for the home, this might be a chance for Microsoft to save itself.
Maybe it'd be the Microsoft TV.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Finally, they get to jump on somebody.
Steve. I got a great panel. Clayton Morris from Fox and Friends. Tim Stevens, the editor-in-chief at Engadget. We've got Brian Brushwood of Scam School. His new book, Scam School 2, is hitting the bookstores. When does it hit the bookstores?
Tuesday at noon is when the whole world needs to buy it. If we all buy it exactly at noon, then for one hilarious, awesome moment, we'll be #1 in the world.
And your recommendation, because it's the most vivid, the most beautiful, the audio, the video, the animation, would be to get it on the iPad from the iBook store.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to say that publicly, but between you and me, it's because I suspect that iTunes is the one we can most likely hit #1 on. So definitely buy it on the iTunes
It's the dinkiest.
store.
So buy it, but this does look good. And I have to say, your first one was a huge success, right?
Dude, I'm telling you, this one is 33% larger. It's got 65 video illustrations. It's got over 70 commentary tracks. It includes more tricks that haven't even shown up on Scam School yet. We teach you how to take coffee creamer and turn it into a column of flame 3 feet tall. It's completely rad.
That's exciting to know. I'm putting that in my coffee. Yeah, I knew it wasn't milk. All right, it's good. Obviously you're doing very well with the books. Congratulations.
Yeah, he's
That's
buying.
great. He's buying. John C. Dvorak, also here from Channel Dvorak. Our show brought to you today by our friends at Citrix, which has updated GoToAssist. You've probably heard about GoToAssist for 10 years now. Pioneers in remote support. They are the market leader, according to IDC, in remote support. It's not even close. Why? Because it's always been the best remote support product. Fast, easy to use, 8 sessions at once, unattended support. But now they've added a new module to GoToAssist that gives you monitoring too. And now this has become the IT person's dream come true. Remote support so you can fix the problems fast. Remote monitoring so you know about the problems when they're still little before they become big. You start by a quick assay of all of the devices on your network, the GoToAssist crawler. And by the way, if you have many clients, you just do this on each network. It finds everything, hardware, network attached devices, software. You can then set up a dashboard, custom dashboard showing performance, key metrics, even things like I got a toner cartridge running out dashboard. I got a hard drive running out of space dashboard. You get alerts, IM, SMS, email, and then you fire up the remote support and you fix it. Just awesome. This is something that if you're in the IT business and the support business, this is the tool for you. You can get it for 30 days absolutely free and decide for yourself by visiting gotoassist.com and using the promo code TWiT. So just click that blue Try It Free button right there on the left. And there's a link that expands out promo code TWiT. You got to try this. Gotoassist.com. Use the offer code TWiT. We thank the good folks at Citrix for making this possible. Well, Tim, we'll watch with interest. We're going to do a live coverage of the event as well. You know, it's easy for us. We don't actually go anywhere. We just sit here and we watch Engadget. And repeat what you guys say.
It's going to be easy for me, too, actually, because I'm sending a couple of other people to the event.
Let them do it.
I get to watch from home, too.
Do you find it adorable, those brief moments of complete communication inefficiency where for a brief moment it's like you're reporting on the horse races from a teletype over horse code?
He's going around second. He's coming into third. Wait a minute. The telegraph died. He's going around. It is like that. It's kind of... And now, I don't know, Microsoft, Apple never streams these things, or rarely. Microsoft has a history of streaming these events. Maybe they will stream. Did they give us any indication? Does the invitation say anything like that?
No, nothing at all. They did stream all of their E3 stuff, so if indeed it is a Xbox-related thing, maybe they would. But I think they would have been making a big deal of that by now if they were planning on it. So I wouldn't necessarily bank on them streaming this tomorrow.
Well, I'm going to come in. TNT will be here. We got Tom Merritt and Ayaz and Sarah. So we will be covering this. We'll get Paul Thurrott on the horn and Mary Jo Foley as well. So I think this is, Microsoft's acting as if this is a big deal. They're going to get a lot of people very upset if they're announcing a new mouse or here's the Windows 8 tablets you'll be able to get in October. I think it's something much more significant than that. And the fact that they're doing it in L.A. makes me really think that
I think you're right.
They've
I think
pulled it all together.
I think L.A. Entertainment Capital, I think, is exactly the reason they're there. It's got some entertainment angle.
We're going to go on the record. You're saying you're projecting that they're going to announce a full-on ecosystem instead of just a gizmo?
It's the only thing that makes sense if you're Microsoft. They need to show that this is what's worked for Apple, right? It's end-to-end. So they sell it, you play it back on it, you download everything. It's all Apple. It's an Apple universe, and you never have to leave it. Microsoft can do, frankly, a more credible story. They've already got HBO, Go, Hulu, ESPN. They could do a more credible story, I think.
Well, and to be honest, there's a number of these entertainment icons that are ticked off with Apple's one-size-fits-all strategy, where it's like, thou shalt charge $2.99 for HD episodes of all your shows.
And Apple's too big right now. Apple's is the #1 retailer of music in the world. So the record industry would love to see some competition from Microsoft, let's say.
Sure. No, they could gather together in a version of the Super Friends, like the
It's the Avengers.
There you go.
Actually, Sarah Lane will not be here. She's in London. You're right. Thank you. She might be here. Who knows? So, okay, so you're right. This was all a ploy to get us to forget WWDC, which was just Monday. Apple announced more information about iOS 6, more information about Mountain Lion. They say Mountain Lion will be out next month, which is kind of a surprise, earlier than
because you were covering it live.
We did cover it live.
I thought it was boring.
You know, it was going to be boring until they announced this MacBook Pro with Retina. And that was kind of
an upgrade to me.
Well, I don't know. Now, Tim, you've probably already you got one. See, there he is. Tim Stevens got one. So you're going to be the go-to guy on this. What do you think?
It's very nice.
It's a MacBook Air killer.
I bought one. Mine comes tomorrow.
No. I don't think it's an Air killer. I work with a 13-inch MacBook Air now, and when I was sitting there, I was actually live blogging on my 13-inch Air, and as I was typing, I actually was planning, okay, which configuration do I want to buy to replace my 13-inch Air? But after I did the review of this unit, you know, I'm not so sure. It is 1.5 pounds heavier than the Air, which, if you travel as much as I do,
that's a lot.
It definitely adds up.
It's 4.5 pounds. A lot of people said it's too heavy.
It is a little heavy. It doesn't look heavy.
Amateur travelers. I'm on the road 200 days out of the year. I lug around.
You should see the size of this thing.
He's a maniac.
I bring a brick with me. It's nothing but raw power.
So, but
I agree about the lightness. You need it when you travel. No matter what Brushwood says.
Yeah, but John, you said it's an air killer. It really isn't, because if you have,
I haven't seen it. Well, let me just say I haven't seen it. I've only seen pictures. It looks like like a beefed up Air. It just doesn't look that heavy. It doesn't look like it could weigh as much as it does.
Well, that's why it probably feels heavy, because it's so thin. The denser you make these things, the more heavy they seem. Right? They appear.
I'm talking to you right now over Skype. I'm using the Retina MacBook Pro right now, and so this webcam is the HD webcam.
It looks good.
Your finger's going to hit us.
It's 720p,
but it is heavier. Certainly, it's like 4.5 pounds, I think, compared to the Air. And once you play with the 11-inch Air or 13-inch Air, it's, you know, unless you really need that beefed up speed and you really want that Retina display, I don't see myself forking over the money for this. I mean, this is a review unit, obviously, right now, but I think we're in this transitional space right now for Apple. Apple just feels like they're in between spaces right now, right? Because of the cost of SSD. So the configurations on the SSD drives on this, if you're jumping up to, what is it, 700, you're paying like an extra $500, I think, for these drives. And then, of course, you don't have the rest of the line yet with Retina displays. So I think next year we won't be having this discussion. I think you'll have the Retina display Airs, and you wouldn't even consider picking up the 15-inch MacBook Pro with it, you know.
So the Air is the MacBook Pro killer when it goes Retina.
Yeah, it very well could be.
This is fascinating to me that everybody wants to compare the new MacBook Pro to the MacBook Air, and nobody wants to compare it to the previous MacBook Pro. Like, that is some of the branding genius from Apple, because by all rights, we should only be comparing it to the previous iteration of the MacBook Pro. But instead, you got to realize, like, their current structure, unless I'm misinterpreting it, the MacBook Air is the entry-level PC now, as far as it's the cheapest and the lightest and the lowest powered. And that's what we're all comparing this to. This is phenomenal.
It does slot in between the two in terms of physical size. In terms of performance, it's basically on par with the updated 15-inch MacBook Pro. That's the problem. They don't have really a name for either of these two Pros. There's the MacBook Pro, the 15-inch, and then this is the MacBook Pro with Retina display, which is the formal name for it. So it's even difficult to compare the two because it's hard to talk about the two without stepping on yourself. But in terms of performance, it is actually faster than the Pro in terms of disk I/O, because we've got these new SSDs, which are about twice as fast as the ones that they had in the Air last year.
And it's a quad-core i7.
Yep. The performance is outrageous. The benchmarks we've run on this are some of the fastest we've ever seen out of a laptop. Of course, the display is hugely high res, and you can get up to 16 gigs of RAM, which is outrageous. But, of course, the price is outrageous, too. You can price this thing up to $4,000 and above if you want to, and that's a lot of money for a slim laptop.
You got to make sure, so I'm going to raise the two negatives. You got to make sure you buy Apple Care, because there are no user serviceable parts in this thing. In fact, Kyle Wiens of iFixit, writing at Wired.com, says the new MacBook Pro, unfixable, unhackable, untenable. Everything is glued together in this. The battery, Apple's claiming 1,000 charges, but afterwards you have to pay $200 to Apple to replace the battery. You cannot do it yourself. They have eliminated some of the thickness by, for instance, gluing the screen into the lid, so it's not replaceable. When I bought it, I bought Apple Care because it's not fixable. Is this so this is an interesting trend. This is like the iPad, like the iPhone. It's a consumer device with built-in obsolescence. I think that's a bad idea. Certainly, from an upgrade point of view, you can't upgrade the RAM.
It's the future.
So my question for you all is this the future, and we're just going to live with it, or is this a bad thing? Am I an old-fashioned guy for wanting upgradability?
For one, I've been Apple curious for a very long time. I'm hardcore PC to the bone, but I got an iPhone, I got an iPad, and I perceive those as consumer devices where they're supposed to do one thing and do it exquisitely well, and that's it. But knowing how much RAM costs, I get angry when I see the pricing structure that Apple puts out there. And seeing that they're locking everything down even more, as a consumer, I absolutely hate this decision. I think it's the worst idea they could possibly do. As a pundit, I firmly believe this is the smartest thing they could do, and they're going to make a freaking mint because they're going to commoditize the laptop market. And I hate them for it.
Tim, is this a bad idea?
You can definitely look at it both ways. I think this is ultimately giving the consumers what they want, which is thinner and lighter laptops. And the only way for them to do that is to start using these custom components, which is exactly what they're doing. The reason you can't replace the SSDs easily is because they're custom SSDs. If they went with a standard 2.5-inch hard drive design, that would mean they'd need to make more room in the case for them. They wouldn't have as much room for battery life. If they wanted to have the battery life the same, they'd have to make a bigger case. So this is what they're having to do to deliver these amazing designs. And same thing with the screen. The reason the screen is glued in is because they wanted to reduce the number of layers of glass in there. They wanted to thin the whole thing out. Because of the reduced layers in there, there's actually a lot less glare than there used to be. So there is a benefit to you, but if you're the kind of person who wants to be able to replace a panel, that's a bad thing. I hope that there will always be two schools of thoughts. Laptops that people can upgrade and repair, and laptops that are basically disposable. And certainly Apple is trending toward the disposable side.
The second complaint, as long as we're talking about complaints. Oh, go ahead. Clayton, you want to say something about this?
No, I was just about to say Tim said it perfectly. I mean, I think, some of the beef with this is in the department of that, there are people who do want to buy and enjoy these products that are simple, and they don't have to worry about doing anything with them once they have them. And there are those, to Tim's point, he said it great, that do, if this is going to be their pro machine, right? If this is the one that they're going to be upgrading because this is their workhorse machine, the one that they're out rolling video between Thunderbolt displays and doing all sorts of things in the field with video editing and photo editing in the field, and they want to be able to expand something because the new camera that they just got in the field now requires them to have X, Y, and Z, then they're out $3,000 because they can't expand it. So I certainly see the need on the pro side to be able to do that. We see that with the Mac Pro. Right, I mean that's highly expandable. So I can see,
and probably highly dead. They didn't really even update the Mac Pro at all.
Yeah.
I guess if I feel bad for a computer or an iPad, I feel the same way about the iPad, which is essentially not upgradable or replaceable. That these things will have useful life for years, probably 5-10 years, except for the fact that the battery will only last a few years, and it's fairly expensive or impossible to replace it. And so I feel like Apple is, I understand. They want to make it thinner, lighter. They want to make a consumer product. But they're kind of also making a product with built-in obsolescence in an age where that just seems to me antisocial.
One thing I've noticed, though, with Apple in these components is that I've never known anyone, even beyond the year warranty, to ever have, like, if my wife takes, her MacBook Pro in where it's not retaining a charge at all. It wouldn't do anything with the battery.
Yeah, the battery was dead.
Few years long in the tooth, right?
Yeah.
She didn't have Apple Care, and she just took it in, and she said, look, battery's not working. They just ran a test on it, sure enough, and they just replaced her battery for her, no cost. And the same with the iPhone. Even beyond the 1-year warranty time, you go into an Apple store and you say, I don't know what's going on here. They run a test, batteries dead. They replace it, and very often they do it for free. They don't even
often, but you can't count on it. That's not their policy. That's because she's cute, and the Apple genius said, "Okay, Natalie, you can have a new one."
I've seen you on the TV.
I think you're very nice.
It doesn't count.
But it is not their policy, and it is not always going to happen. And most of the time, in fact, if you look at the charge for replacing a battery on the MacBook Retina, or whatever we call this thing, is it's $200 to replace the battery. It's $200.
I'll tell you what, though, this is Apple banking on the same psychology that makes global warming such a difficult nut to crack, because it's a vague threat of something down the road.
Right.
And it's like, well, do you want to not buy an Apple just because down the road you may have shortened battery life that you'll have to...
And the real response is, but it's pretty.
I want to refer everybody to the PC Magazine column written by me June 13th, 2012, a few days ago, called "Nothing Can Be Fixed Anymore."
That's the question.
But you have to take this to an extreme and look at it from a societal level. This includes your automobile.
Right.
When we were kids,
you can't tune up an automobile.
You can't tune up a Lexus.
Sure, but cars don't break as much as they used to.
Well, no, they're made better.
Well,
it's the same thing.
More reliable now than they used to be.
Well,
in
that's
fact,
true.
A car as a durable good lasts 10 years or more. Your Lexus lasts 200, 300,000
I just
miles.
had the spark plugs changed 125.
Yeah.
On the spark plugs. The guy said, they should have been changed at 80,000 miles. Well, when I was a kid...
So it's very different for a car and a computer, which has a much longer...
the fact is we're creating an environment where everybody's dependent now. You can't fix anything. You can't do anything yourself. This is actually a function of the nanny state, where everything is done for you. And you should... That's exactly what it's all about.
First of all,
read the column.
You may not invoke libertarian conservative politics to defend this. Go ahead.
Dude, okay, so here's the thing. First of all, what you want, the answer to this is you're thinking about this all wrong. You're not buying a product. You're buying a service. And part of the service involves you get a gizmo. And when the gizmo breaks as part of your subscription to the Apple service...
Your slavery.
But to bring in the nanny state government talk is crazy talk. This is
read the column. I outlined this beautifully. I actually bring Facebook into it too.
I think what John is saying in the column, and I think it's probably true, is that there is a mindset where you just go, I'm just going to let you take care of this, Apple or the government. I'm just going to let you take care of this. I give up.
I give up.
I give up. I can no longer fight this fight, and I give up.
Okay,
isn't
stop
this
thinking
the way
about
that
it
people
in terms
want to
of
buy
I
gadgets?
give up, and start thinking of it in terms of my time has a value, a price,
Right.
and I'm willing to pay
luxury.
extra to not think about this
I'm willing to pay extra so I can drive all the way to the Apple store with my little device and I drop it off or get it replaced.
I think it's irresponsible.
That's a time waster.
I understand, and I agree with you, Brian, that this comes from that attitude. I can afford this, but that's irresponsible.
Or is it just that we just don't want to spend our time?
This is another thing. Part of human psychology is that we cannot tolerate a small amount of risk. We will pay extraordinary orders of magnitude more for a device that promises 100% security.
There you go. Security. You hit the right word.
So instead, what Apple is doing is they're saying we're going to vastly overcharge for all of our products, but in exchange, 100% of the time, we'll be able to make things right no matter what's wrong, and you will never feel like you got stuck with a lemon with our products. And I understand that. And to be honest, I think that's an okay bet. It's what all of insurance is based on, is 100% protection. That's essentially Apple's rolling in the cost of insurance to all their products to provide exceptional customer service.
Clayton.
I disagree. I disagree with in part on that. When you look at the iPad, right, no one could compete with the price on the iPad, and you had all these. You had what was it, the Zoom tablet that came out that was like $200 more expensive. They couldn't compete on price, and so Apple got the price down to a manageable degree. And for many people, that was their first computer. You had 80-year-olds for crying out loud using the iPad for the first time. It was the first time they'd ever used email. So I don't know that I buy the whole price argument anymore for Apple. Maybe that used to be the way, and maybe some other product line still is. But I think most of the time it's the people just want to be able to use these products easily. They don't want to have to pick out and get a little screw device and take off the bottom, and they're worried they're going to screw up their entire computer. So for the maker faire market, this is a bad thing. But for the for the majority of the people, the 90% that Apple always seems to target, I think this is a smart thing.
That's exactly what Tim said. So we've come full circle. We all agree with you, Tim. You're right, as usual. All right, problem number 2. And I want to talk to the two guys who have this MacBook Pro with Retina display, Tim and Clayton. They no longer, in the control panel, give you screen resolutions. They give you basically 5 choices: larger text, best, or more space. But may I point out that even if you choose more space, this highest resolution, that is not the native resolution of the display. It is not 2880 by 1800. It's 1920 by 1200. You cannot set this display to its native resolution.
And that is the most annoying thing for me about this laptop. When we were listening about the presentation of the laptop, I was working with Darren Murph at the live blog, and we both looked at each other and thought, wow, we're going to get 4 times the screen real estate than we have in our current Macs. But that's not the case. What they're doing is they're scaling every application to bring it up to be roughly the same size as it would be on the current 15-inch Pro. So if you're running an older application that hasn't been updated yet, as the vast majority have not been, it's still going to be big as it was before. You can adjust that slider like you were talking about, but even then it will only be as small as it would have been on the 17-inch with the 1080p panel. So even then it's going to be bigger than it should be running on the native resolution. Only applications that have been updated, like Final Cut Pro, for example,
or iPhoto or Aperture,
right,
which is
basically the first-party titles.
Photographers will want this. I can understand why.
But somebody like me who wants my text editor to be super high res and so I can have 80 windows, I can't do that. At least not yet until those applications have been updated. It's totally different than on a PC where if you get a much higher resolution monitor, everything just scales appropriately. Apple's basically doing the reverse. If your application hasn't been updated to use this display, then it gets scaled and it gets blown up.
And as you pointed out, if you set this to their setting that says best for Retina display, it's the same resolution as your MacBook Pro.
Well, that totally sucks.
It's the same resolution. It's 1920 by 1200.
You realize, Leo, that this is not this is essentially Apple acknowledging that they have improved, and this is something. The moment I saw WWDC, and I annoyed my assistant John by suggesting this, Apple literally created an enhancement that you need a magnifying glass to even see the difference on, because if you're more than 3 feet away from your screen, by their own definition, you can't tell the difference between a regular display and a Retina display. And the side effect of that, this is them saying, we don't want you to make it so small, because then you'll not even be able to see it because it's too freaking tiny.
But Apple's running a con game because they're saying that our Retina display is 2880 by 1800, and you can't set it to that resolution.
Unless your application has been updated. So, for example, in Final Cut Pro, they did update the app. So if you're running that, you can get a full 1080p preview of the video, plus all your timelines, plus all the menus, and plus everything else, all on the screen. So that app, for example, does make use of all the real estate. But the vast majority of apps out there do not. And that to me, is a huge shortcoming of this laptop.
And most of those apps will be updated, I'm sure.
Is it a shortcoming of the laptop, or is it a shortcoming of the market? Because one of the things I notice when I'm on the web is just how bad the web looks. I mean, the web in general.
And ironically, you're still not set. Oh, now wait a minute. Is Safari? So Safari's doing 2880.
Safari has been.
So Safari is doing 2880 by 1800. But Chrome is not.
Chrome is not, but there are some some extensions you can get that help with some of the text rendering. But when I go to like certain websites, I'm just scaling around here, and when you look at some of the assets on certain sites, I mean, they just look horrible. And text looks great.
So once again, the web has to redesign itself to fit Apple.
Yeah,
they killed Flash, and now they're.
Well, I'd like to refer people to my June 6th, 2012 column entitled "The Worst Thing Ever: Retina Display," and I discuss
John, you're way ahead of us all.
Pretty much what Brian was discussing in a column form.
It's because you have glaucoma, so you're worried about.
Well, I understand that Apple's concern is if you and we knew this this was in the rumors that we've talked about this for a couple of months on Mac Break Weekly, our Macintosh show on Tuesdays. Is that Apple isn't going to give you resolution settings, because if you set it, as most people would, to the native resolution, I can't read a thing. All the pixels are so small and the icons are too small. It makes everything look teensy-weensy.
Get closer.
So I actually have a question for you, Leo. This seems to me like this is a canary in the coal mine kind of situation, kind of a test for 4K displays, because we go back and forth with this on Frame Rate, me and Tom Merritt, about this. I think 4K displays in the home are a terrible idea if you position them as a TV. I think they're a great idea if you position them as a brand new device called a video wall or something.
Right.
You need to do something fundamentally different, because as long as we think of it as a TV, we're seeing increasingly diminishing returns.
Well, we did see that when HD came out and people were watching I Love Lucy on their HD display, and they were going, this looks really crappy. Because it does, because it always looked crappy. You just couldn't see it before.
Oh, I still have my parents. Thank God they're not watching this. They don't even know how to find the internet. But thank God. I mean, when I come over, we got them a nice television. We got the
and they're watching Perry freaking Mason.
Right, and so instead of watching whatever it is, the local NBC affiliate or whatever they're watching, if they're watching the Phillies game, they're not watching it on the HD channel. They're watching it on channel 4 instead of channel 804.
Exactly. They're not even watching the HD version of the channel.
I know, that's what kills me.
And they're thinking, oh, this looks so much better, Clayton. Thank you.
This TV is so good.
You're
but
nice.
You're still watching the same signal you were watching before.
I know, it drives me crazy. I see that all the time. You're watching Channel 4. You should be watching Channel 207.
Well, if you make the argument it's all about the content, you really don't care. My daughter does this. She doesn't care. I say, why are you watching it on regular definition? Put it on HD. Yeah, it doesn't make any difference as far as she's concerned.
It makes us angry. They don't care.
It only makes us angry.
We're the only ones even noticing.
We're one little sliver of society complaining about this.
So does it look a little weird, Tim, when you're I mean, how does that work? So you're using an Apple 2880 by 1800 app, and then you go to another app. Does a screen reset? How does that happen?
Boing.
So all the assets of the OS are always being rendered at the native resolution. What you're doing is basically scaling the icons and scaling the text and everything else. So
that's why things look
jaggy. You go to Windows and you run it at something at a non-native resolution and everything looks really weird. So it's okay, but some apps, it depends on how they're written. Like if you use Sparrow, which I use for email, the content pane of your email is in really nice high resolution, looks great, but the list of your emails is in super jaggy vision, looks terrible. So some apps, even within the app, are different. But you are getting the resolution. And it kind of ties back to what we were talking about before, where if you can't fix your laptop, some people feel strongly about that, some people don't care. It's the same thing here. They're kind of hiding the concept of a resolution from you.
Right.
It's kind of the same as you were doing before, but now instead of picking a resolution, you're kind of picking a size. And they're more or less hiding that because people don't need to worry about that.
This is not what happened with the iPad when it went to a screen double display, is it?
It's pretty similar, actually, because everything is being scaled on the iPad in much the same way that your apps are being scaled here.
Okay, so if you're comfortable with the new iPad and the way it's handling that, you'll be comfortable with it. But see, isn't it just doubling, always doubling on the iPad? Here it's not always doubling. I don't understand. Okay, explain this to me. I'm looking at the control panel. I set it for best for Retina display. It's 1920 by 1200. What is 1920 by 1200?
It's how that app would look if you ran it on the 17-inch MacBook Pro with the 1080p panel. That's how large that app would physically be if you launched it on that. Best for Retina, quote-unquote, is basically making the app be the same size as it would be if you ran it on the 15-inch MacBook Pro.
But it's not doubling, so you're going to have jaggies.
Think about it like you would think about Diablo. If you want to bring Diablo down to its lowest settings, 800 by 600, you're going to be able to see, even though your display is still 1920 by 1080, and even though the video card is still putting that out, you will just see the individual pixels as though it were 800 by 600. That's essentially what it's doing with all of the apps, if I understand it correctly.
Hey, Brian, wait a minute. Go back to Brian.
Yeah?
Who's he talking to?
He's got somebody over there.
Who are you talking to? You're like talking off camera.
There, he's got a switcher.
See, I'm turning to face you guys. See, you guys are over here, and now I'm looking at you.
Why don't you move the camera?
Jeez. I will jump in to say that Diablo 3 actually can be run at the full native resolution, and shockingly, it manages 30 frames per second at 2880 in Diablo 3, which is pretty impressive for laptop, I would say.
I think they actually optimized it for Diablo 3 because they even mentioned it at the keynote. It's like, and this runs great.
Surprised by? I remember at the iPad 3 or the new iPad launch event, picking it up for the first time and going to the New York Times website to see how that rendered. Obviously, text looks beautiful, looks brilliant, and then you look at some of the assets on the page, whether a Twitter like button or those sorts of things, or even some of the images there, and they just looked terrible.
Yeah,
they really looked terrible.
So this is not the first time we've seen this.
No, and it's still not fixed. That's what I guess I wanted to say, which is, the New York Times, which is often featured like on Apple's website as like a major feature news website that they feature on the iPad, they still haven't started using like Retina assets on their website. So I don't know how long. If the New York Times isn't doing it, God knows it's going to take another 10 years.
Is there an issue of bandwidth if you suddenly putting these much higher scaled? What you're doing is you're making a much fatter site for normal people to accommodate the people using the higher resolution displays, which is right now a minimum, right?
Right.
So I think it's reasonable that the New York Times would say, well, they probably went to the designer and said, okay, so if we wanted to make this image Retina, how much bigger? That's 20 megabytes. If we wanted to make, the whole site, how much bigger? It's 38 gigabytes. If we, how much more bandwidth are we going to be using? Well, you're going to use 50% more bandwidth. How many
These
of the
aren't
people?
images they're sending constantly, though, but the text is coming over.
Well, the text scale's fine, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. So what we're trying to do on our site to make this work is basically move away from images wherever we can and move to sprite-based things and text-based things and things that can scale more appropriately.
No more pictures
People
because
like sprites.
Yeah.
No more pictures. Yeah,
no more
it's
pictures.
A link-based browser.
It's
that's
just text.
I don't think this is a specious because most of the images that are sent over, even on a website, generally speaking, are never scaled down. They're scaled down by the browser 90% of the time. No. When I post a photo, and especially if it's a linked photo, I look at what the resolution is, and I say, well, do I want to shrink this? Nah, let the browser do it.
Trained professionals work otherwise.
No, that's bull crap.
or they have a smart IT guy who set it up so that they've got resizing built into the content management system. Because that's not you're putting 100K graphics on the site. Saying that's too much trouble. The browser will fix it.
No, you have a lot of sites that have. I know what these templates look like, and they create thumbnails. They're not creating thumbnails and downloading them. They're just taking the image and thumbnailing it on the front page. That's still a 500, 600 wide image, even though it's only like 40 pixels wide.
Yeah,
and you click on it, and boom, there it is.
I think they resize that.
No.
To tell you.
No. You haven't been blogging it recently.
Let me ask Tim because he mentioned scalable vector graphics. So are you going to be starting to use SVG graphics? I mean, you don't want to get rid of graphics. You'll look like you'll be terrible.
Right. So you can do a lot of amazing things with CSS and HTML5 that previously you had to rely on actual image formats for. So what we're trying to do is come up with interesting ways of using text to replace a lot of the graphics, the actual JPEGs and SVGs and everything else.
Tim, I'm looking at Engadget.com. I've never seen a more graphic, picture-heavy site.
Yeah, I will be perfectly bluntly honest that I'm not a huge fan of our current design. But anyhow, some interesting, fascinating changes are coming.
It's going to have to look different if you're going to get rid of all the graphics.
Yeah, it absolutely will. But
and then that's kind of upstream from the competition is, let's say, The Verge, where they have opted for it. See, they're going to have a big challenge. They've opted for basically the Windows 8 version.
Yeah.
Simple is better, in my opinion. We definitely want to simplify.
So. This is going to be the web is going to revert to text links.
I wouldn't say that necessarily.
Welcome back to AOL, ladies and gentlemen.
Get your links browser out. All right. Well, this is interesting.
Log into the VMS.
But it's true because so many people use the iPad or the iPhone 4S or I don't know if they're going to sell a lot of these Mac Pros, but MacBook Pros.
Well, that's the question. I was curious how many 17 inches they weren't selling, right? Because, I mean,
they killed it, right?
Right. Well, yeah, it's dead. But so if they killed it, it's gone. This replaces that in many ways. Is this going to – all of these little nitpicky things we're talking about, again, I don't think, the student going off to college is going to be buying this machine. And I don't think, again, my mom is going to be buying this machine. This is for the pro user, allegedly. So I think, those individuals are going to know how to set a display the way they need it. But I also think this is a transitional thing. I don't think we're going to see that little menu that you were just talking about, that control panel menu, in a year. I feel like that's
going to go. You're not even going to set it. It's just going to do it.
Right. That'll be gone.
Oh, yay.
Now, Leo, I heard you during the announcement talking about how much you wanted a touchscreen display. Are you disappointed that they didn't go with that?
Well, I don't know about you. Maybe I'm weird because I use the iPad. I don't use it all the time. I'm mostly a MacBook Air user, but I do still find myself touching the laptop.
Well, and everybody
That's
else,
why it's all smudged up. You got mustard on it.
You get used to doing that, and then...
Well, especially when they've trained us for 2 years now on iPads to interact and touch our screens, and then I
want to touch it.
It seems like it would be relatively.
I want to touch it all the time.
You just have to add the ability to scroll and touch and throw stuff around on the screen.
I'm guessing that they would have to change some of the internals of the operating system to make that really seamless throughout. So maybe that's something that they're waiting on the actual next major release of the OS, which we've been waiting on for a couple of years now to implement. But me, personally, I hate fingerprints on my screen. I hate it when somebody reaches up and points to something at my monitor and they actually touch the monitor. That to me really
but it's
annoys me.
They're already doing that. At least they're already doing that. At least they would have a reason for it.
Very true. Very true.
No, I mean, I look at my iPad and it's horrible. It's disgusting. It's like it's got fingerprints, it smudges. And I think that just welcome to the future. That's every Windows. Aren't most of the new Windows 8 PCs going to have? What are you doing?
I'm doing. This is how you get rid of.
What's he doing?
I don't know.
This isn't good. Turn it off.
I guess he touches it all the time too.
Yeah, but not when you're not talking about the computer.
Look at that. Clean as a whistle.
Mine looks like it's been massaged by a hot dog vendor.
Exactly. With the hot dogs.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, I don't know. I think Windows 8, it's not just going to be Windows RT that's going to, the tablet, it's going to, I imagine there'll be quite a few. In fact, we saw them at Computex, touch screen laptops. I think that's what's coming.
Yeah, because I think what's more weird about Windows 8 is using a mouse to use
so
Windows
weird.
8. Yeah,
it's so weird. It doesn't work. But
so,
we
are we going to talk about iOS 6?
We are. Hold on. Let's take a break. We're going to come back with more. This is so good. And I do want to talk about the Steve Jobs note, good article on Engadget that went for $27,500, and the Apple One computer that went for $375.
So I have an interesting videotape.
Hold on. We'll get to that in a moment. But first,
a teaser.
I want to talk about Audible.com. Okay, show of hands. Audible users. I know Clayton. I know Brian. I know Tim, yeah? John, you don't.
I mean to.
He's always wanted to. Here's your chance, John. Audible.com/twit2. You can get 2 books free. How about that? Or a 2-credit book like Game of Thrones free. Audible is the ultimate in audiobook stores. Over 100,000 titles. Fantastic stuff. In fact, it's probably too late. Well, maybe it's not. If you didn't get a Father's Day gift for your dad, an Audible subscription, or even you could just gift a book, is a great thing. Dad loves audiobooks, like the Kane Mutiny. Wouldn't you? Don't you think Dad would like to hear the Kane Mutiny?
Oh yeah.
I was at the Strawberries, and there was I was going down. This is. I probably doesn't sound like that, but because that was the movie, but.
Who reads that new Cronkite book? I just put that in my my Audible.
There's
queue.
a Cronkite book. I should read it.
Just came out. Yeah, it just came out. It's huge. It's a.
I love Cronkite.
Yeah.
It's called Cronkite by Douglas Brinkley. Oh, George Goodall. George Goodall is one of their best narrators. Here, I'll play a little bit of this. I'm going to get. This is the abridged version. I'm sure there's an unabridged as well. But let's.
Down as CBS News anchorman on a Friday night, one network executive postulated that the broadcaster had come to represent God, Mother, the American flag, the 4-minute mile, and Mount Everest to an adoring public traumatized by Vietnam and Watergate.
I can't wait to listen to this. That sounds great. That's Cronkite. Let me just see. They usually have abridged and unabridged. In this case, I think they don't do an unabridged version.
But I saw an unabridged in there for 2 credits, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's the abridged version is 12 hours.
Yeah, it's a thick book. I saw it at the bookstore, and I immediately went to Audible. I mean, it's a thick, sort of David McCullough style thick book.
I can't wait. I can't wait. They called him Old Iron Pants because he could sit there for hours and just, you're too young. You guys are too young, but John and I are old enough to remember watching Cronkite with the space launches.
Yeah.
And he'd sit there of another hold. So let's once again disassemble the model of the Apollo rocket I have sitting here.
You should have
done the voice.
I should have. I
don't
could
know
have done
if you can sustain it.
I could sustain that. I could go hours talking like this, just like Walter Cronkite. So anyway,
you ever notice that Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! Tries to sound like him?
I haven't heard that.
Re-listen to her, and
that's a good show, by the way.
Oh,
well, I know it's exactly why I listen, because I can just feel you getting upset. Audible.com. Oh, Michael Chabon's The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. I didn't know that wasn't out in audio. That's a great book. Alan First writes the most wonderful spy thrillers. His new one is out, Mission to Paris, in the Night Soldiers series. He is really good. You're just not going to run out of stuff to listen to with 100,000 plus titles and more being recorded all the time. Nowadays, when a new book comes out, it almost always comes out on Audible at the same time as the book comes out in the store. I am just a big fan. And now here's a chance for you to try Audible free. Visit audible.com/twit2. Pick 2 books. Your first month is free. Your first 2 credits are free. And you can cancel at any time. Pay nothing, and the books are yours to keep forever. Audible.com. Oh, is the sale over yet? I don't know if they have a half price sale right now, 40% sale. So you might want to check that out. What are you listening to right now? I'm sorry, Brian. I think I steered you wrong. I told you to listen to 1Q84. I don't think you liked it.
Oh, no, I didn't. Mainly because nothing happened, but it was...
And it's really long.
Well, I'm reading that right now. Don't spoil the ending for me.
Not only is it long, but there's extended... The last third of the book is... This is not an exaggeration. The last third of the book is one person on a stakeout waiting for another person who's on vacation investigating another person waiting for them to come back. It's literally nothing for the last third of the book.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have recommended that.
But it was beautiful.
What are you listening to right now?
I'm actually listening to, it's edited by George R.R. Martin. I think this happened back in the 1980s, called Wild Cards. And it's sort of, it's a realistic take on what if an alien virus just mixed up the genes on everyone. Some people, most of them are jokers. They draw bad wild cards where they got blue skin or they're missing an arm now. But then a few of them are aces, and they got essentially telekinesis or some other powers as well. I'm enjoying the world, but I'm frustrated by the nature of it being a collection of short stories written by all different people, because just when I fall in love with a character or situation, it jumps onto something different.
This is other people have done this. In fact, I think Audible did it too, where they create a world and then get a bunch of science fiction writers together to write stories in that world, but not necessarily connected stories.
Right.
It's an interesting trope. I didn't realize that people had done that before. And actually, there's 2 books in that series. What are you listening to,
Because
Clayton?
of my fascination with this James Garfield book I just finished called Destiny the Republic on Audible, and it is fantastic. Tech fans will love this, too. It's called A Tale of Madness, Medicine, and Murder of a President, and how James Garfield was assassinated. But really, it was the people in there probing around in his body for like 4 months before he actually died. But it was all Alexander Graham Bell who was trying to create this device to find the bullet in him. So it's really a tech story.
Wow.
Really great. It was by Candace Millard. It was a page turner. It's like a thriller. I was a history major. Maybe that's why I loved it so much.
I love history. I listen to a lot of. I'm listening to a new book called Storm of War that is a new history of World War II, using materials that they got from Soviet Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union.
I'm adding that to my queue right now.
Really good if you like World War II histories. Anyway, we could go on and on. The Audible ad goes on for hours because it's really not an ad for Audible. It's just like, what are you listening to? What are you talking about? We'll stop now. John's already bored. He's reading a catalog.
Maybe you can get those on Audible.
Yeah, you read this catalog on Audible.
Sweetwater. Oh, they've got the best stuff. They've got great stuff. $374,500 for an Apple One. This is one of just a handful of working Apple Ones. Oh, hey, but you also get the manual, the cassette interface. They thought it'd get only $180,000, went for twice that. And then, I think even more interesting, the Steve Jobs Atari Note that went for $27,400.
So I have a videotape.
Yes.
I have the videotape.
Where is it?
Can
I play it? Is it on Dvorak?
No. I just found it. I was cleaning out my videotapes, and I ran into it. It was the official tape. It was the one released to the media of Steve Jobs making the announcement of Next.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
Stage act, the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe we should bring it in.
Bring it in. Is it a VHS?
Yes. Do you have a VHS player?
Do we have a VCR?
No, the answer is no.
I might have one at home. I'll have to check in the basement.
I think I'm going to auction it off to some Steve Jobs memorabilia collector.
If you would sign it, I think you'd got it.
I think
you'd
get it. Sign it.
I think you'd be all set. Anyway, Apple making a little bit of a change. This is really kind of inside baseball, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Podcasts will apparently no longer be part of iTunes.
What?
In iOS 6, apparently, there is a separate podcast app.
So I had heard about this before the event, and I was wondering if we were going to see it during the keynote. And then when we didn't see it during the keynote, I was a little surprised. And a friend sitting next to me said, well, I wouldn't be surprised maybe if it's perhaps hidden in iOS 6 somewhere. And we just won't know about it until people start digging around. And sure enough, you know how Apple usually likes to hold an app or two for their actual physical hardware launch of the iPhone. My sources had said that this is very... it's sort of a radical shift for Apple in the podcast world, where it's going to be pulling it out and creating a separate space for it, but also not just thinking in podcasts, but thinking of it in terms of changing the paradigm away in which we're listening to streaming media, getting away from having to physically download different things to our devices. It's really a hole in iCloud and iTunes match, right? Like you can get all of your songs streaming, but if you subscribe to Mac Break Weekly or
you have
subscribe
to
to This
sync
Week in
up
Tech,
to a computer.
Yeah,
right. You can't physically do that.
This is an acknowledgement that they have fallen way behind apps like Stitcher or Podcaster. It's like
Instacast, Downcast, there's some good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I can't remember the last time. I don't think I own devices for over a year now that I've never once actually synced to a computer, and it just doesn't fit into my workflow anymore. And now that even though there's things that are kludgy about Podcaster, the experience of being able to get everything and you sync all your podcasts right before you get on the plane and you got plenty to listen to is so vastly superior that they needed to do this kind of thing. But I am surprised that they would do the first part, which is kicking it out of iTunes, without following up with the announcement of the new app. And I wonder if it'll be a big announcement on their next event.
I can't think it'll be a big announcement. I mean, I'm a podcaster, but I somehow don't think it's a very big deal.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't think it's just going to be podcasts. From what I'm hearing, is not just going to be. I think
it'll be
in
streaming
terms of
media,
radio,
so you'll be able to
streaming media.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to see that.
Radio.
It'd be very, very good for us because what it would be is a place that we would be a little bit more highlighted instead of buried in iTunes. One of the big problems that we have, and I think all podcasters have, is that of discovery. How do you find a show? There's hundreds of thousands.
Look at Newsstand. Look at the success of Newsstand. Right. What Time Magazine or Time Incorporated just did this week and said, look, they relented. Here we're going to go to Newsstand because we're seeing such an uptick, or individual magazines are seeing such an uptick by just being on that one little skeuomorphic bookstore thing right on the front page where people can't delete the app and they have to go through the store to find it. I mean, right now on the iPad, if you go into the music app to find podcasts, you have to go to there's a little tab that says more.
Right.
It doesn't even, and you can't even edit it. There's not even a place where you can actually physically put it. You have to hit more.
Well, also the fact that it's in iTunes implies that it costs something that like you have to buy, and it says subscribe. And I think there's definitely a feeling that if I push this, am I going to be billed?
Yeah, it's a problem. Huge.
I think separating it out into just this is streaming or downloadable free media is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I hope it's a good thing for us. Anyway, it's probably a little more inside baseball than anybody else cares about.
So Leo's got a Galaxy S3 here.
Oh, I love it.
This thing is phenomenal.
Is it not the best phone you've ever used, Tim?
It's a great phone. I don't know if it's necessarily better than the HTC One X, but it's certainly a phenomenal phone.
I'll tell you the one thing it's better than the One X, you can take the battery out and put a new one in.
This is very true, and this gets back to the disposable device thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Also the issue of a battery life, I can always carry, and I usually do, a couple extra batteries.
I tend to as well, yeah. Especially on Android, because we all know that Android devices can be a little hard on the batteries.
No harder than the iPhone 4S. You find that better?
Well,
I think all smartphones really whip through the battery juice these days.
I've always had bad luck on Android, but there's so many opportunities for rogue apps to go crazy on Android.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're right.
And suddenly your pocket's on fire because your IM app is going crazy, something like that.
Well, it was funny watching WWDC holding a Galaxy S3 in my hand because Apple would keep announcing, and now we can do this. I can launch apps from Siri. Well, yeah, I can do that. I mean, a lot of the features that Apple adopted in iOS 6 are app features that have been in Android for a long time.
Yeah, I got a joke on Twitter during the event that said, are you sure you're not at Google I.O. 2010?
No, that's next week.
So what was this? There was a story about Siri and there's somebody suing, or there's some...
Oh, yeah, guys suing Apple because, not Siri, but the Time Machine lost his baby pictures. And so he's suing because the backup
Maybe they're back in time.
Yeah, they're somewhere.
By the way, there's this thing, I haven't seen it yet, but Siri.curry.com is some video that Adam did that supposedly ridicules the ads or something. I don't know.
Well,
he's
it's easy
produced
to
something.
OS 10 Mountain Lion dictation doesn't work. Is this going to be profane?
I would
Let's
hope
watch
not.
it.
Event of June 11, 2012.
There's that big bass voice of Adam Curry.
One of them because I know that the new OS X would include dictation.
I got to say something.
I'm always very interested in.
It's very obvious that Adam is using a voice processor and has a knob called Big Bottom. He's turned it up all the way to the right. I know, because I've heard the Big Bottom before.
Wait,
Listen,
is that a thing?
That's a thing.
No, there's actually a device. It's
like a grown-up?
It's called the Big Bottom.
It's the Big Bottom. And listen, tell me if Adam doesn't have a Big Bottom.
Much less interested in maps and the snazzy interface improvements.
He's got it turned up.
Dictation I find to be something incredibly
It's using the Howard Stern
amazing.
filter.
Yeah.
Since
Stern sounds
language, it is so hard to interpret exactly
All right,
what
we've heard enough.
somebody means.
It's kind of
So it should have been a little more on the ball.
what's going on in this? He's going to show how the dictation.
Yeah, he shows the dictation doesn't work, I guess.
It works okay for me. I have to say, Siri works better than the
A lot of it
Android.
has to do with your voice. I
A
have
lot
no
of it
mid-range.
is. If you
in
have
my
a big
voice.
bottom, you're not going to do well on this.
Well, maybe not.
Let me try. Let me just try. Siri, bring my car around. Oh no, I'm on an Android. Never mind.
George
It doesn't do. Now it turned on Angry Birds.
Oh my! Oh my! Oh my! Siri,
Ophelia.
warp factor 3. Siri. No, I'm really loving. I think I'll give you the HTC One. I think that's also a very, very hot phone. It's very similar, in fact, in form factor. I think between the two of them, that you've got a pretty good challenger to the iPhone.
The display is so much brighter and nicer.
I love this display.
Absolutely. Yeah, both have beautiful displays. Both are very thin. Both have amazing designs. Both are very quick as well. So, yeah, the Android side, we've got some amazing phones, and we will see what Apple can come up with this fall.
You got to laugh, though. This is a quad-core, because I got the European version, four 1.4 gigahertz processors in a phone.
For what?
Well, that's
Angry
why
Birds?
That's why I have a fish background here, because I figured I got to give something for the processor to do. So there's always fish swimming through my my scene, because otherwise
That's why you're carrying 4 batteries in your pants.
Yeah, no wonder.
these fish. By the way, I can feed the fish. Let me just show you here. If I remove,
I can feed the fish.
I can feed. If I just tap up here, the fish food comes down from the sky.
Yeah, this is the future of technology. I actually have a column about this.
If you'll refer to my June 4th column on Market Watch, see, oops.
It had to do with wasting time. The fact that people don't use computers for productivity anymore, they use them to kill time with this idiotic...
I'm productive. I'm feeding the fish.
Yeah.
Look at there's even a turtle in there.
Look how good that looks on the overhead.
It's stunning.
It's ridiculous.
It's such a good display.
This is why the FCC is looking into these brain cancer tumors, because there's all this heat and processor power being put up.
That's actually a good story. Julius Janikowski, the chairman of the FCC, has asked that they re-examine the rules about how much radiation is considered safe. But of course, now all the commissioners have to approve. Not all, but they have to have a majority of commissioners have to approve this before they re-examine these rules. Does anybody think that really these are dangerous?
No, on this Father's Day, I'm just worried about our collective testicles.
Depends on where you hold the phone.
I never put the phone down there. I got to tell you.
I mean, it's in my pocket nonstop, right? I mean,
I guess you're right. Do you have a front pocket?
Yeah, I always.
But you wouldn't put it in your back pocket.
Well, then that's a whole other issue.
But you realize, first of all, this is nothing but grandstanding by somebody in a bureaucracy who wants to look like they're doing something about a problem that doesn't exist. Essentially, there's a fantastic article on Skeptoid.com talking about this. The World Health Organization has examined 25,000 studies and concluded that none of them imply that there's any cancer risk whatsoever from, or there's no conclusive evidence that there's a cancer risk from cell phones. Essentially, you got to realize that you got this bandwidth spectrum of different types of radiation. At the very low end, you got your radio waves, and at the very high end, you've got your ultraviolet, your X-rays, and beyond. And in the middle, you've got the visible spectrum of light. That tends to be the dividing line of where there's enough energy to start knocking out electrons and physically start altering the chemistry and screwing up your cells. Everything below visible light, including microwave radiation, is non-ionizing radiation, and it just doesn't have the juice to affect anyone. And here's the worst part, is even if it did, even if you could show that there was a 1% increase in brain tumors or whatever, which you can't, the fact is it's still worth it for the trade-off of everything these smartphone devices do for us. It's driving me nuts to see how terrified we are of the technology that brings us so much value. And I don't understand why they want to demonize it.
Yeah, see,
that was a long way to go.
I got a little treasure chest that opens up and when the bubbles...
Yeah, see, we instead of listening to him,
where's the scuba diver?
What was that again, Brian? Can you go over that again?
And then
what was that you said?
You could see the kind of the lights
your
filtering.
Cell phones are fine.
Filtering down from the top there.
Yeah, we're feeding the fish. Never mind.
The treasure chest it opens.
Already gotten a Leo.
And then the bubbles come up. It's really good.
It's really fantastic.
No, I agree with you, but it's funny how persistent this issue is of, gosh, is it okay? Because I'll tell you, Brian, you may say that, and it may even be true. I don't know. I didn't understand it. But
we don't know what you were talking about.
I do think that's really persistent, that people are worried because they come to me all the time saying, but is it okay that I'm holding this radio transmitter to my head all the time?
Yeah.
And the problem is,
Tell
if
them to
it
go on
does,
speakerphone, they'll be fine.
If it does kill people, we may not know for a few more years, right? It's not. This is fairly new. What if it takes 20 years?
Then
it's natural selection.
This is the problem with all of our intuitions. We're all stupid.
Well, that's true.
And it's important to remember this. And it's important that you not rely on what your gut tells you, but it's important that you look at the numbers and you look at the statistics. Right. Statistically, there's no increase in cancer. From a scientific standpoint, non-ionizing radiation can't physically harm you. They've not been able to show it in any way. The most it can do, if you do want to look for an effect, look for the fact of you're putting a device that's warm to a part of your body that traditionally doesn't get warmed up all the time. And that's about it. That's about all you should be looking at.
And by the way, I'm writing a new book just for you, Clayton Morris. It's called Our Testicles Ourselves. And it'll be for the sensitive male in all of us. And on that
Can't
note,
wait to get that on audible.com.
I'd like
so by your logic, Brian, does that mean we can stand in front of a high-intensity radar installation the military uses and just stand
ionizing.
No, it's not.
That's ionizing.
No, it's a radio wave. It's not. It's non-ionizing. Just very powerful.
Okay, so, but here's the other thing. And people
ionizing is radiation.
Right now, I'm already getting tweets saying, WHO says could be possible, whatever. They classified it in their lowest tier of possible causes for cancer, where they also put coffee and carpentry as an occupation. So if that is terrifying to you, along with pickled vegetables.
I'm talking about standing in front of a radar installation. By your logic, it's okay.
Yes, because the science bears it out. I trust the numbers. I trust the scientific method. I trust double-blind testing.
Okay, jeez. Less coffee.
Leo, will the book be a pop-out book?
Yeah, well, I was thinking. Or it could be one of those books where they have a hole in it and you put your finger in it. I haven't decided. Maybe both.
Yeah, it's like the old joke, checking for bees is the punchline. So anyway, go on. What were you talking about?
Lady, Indians ride side saddle.
No, they were a bareback.
Thank you.
Yes. That's the punchline to that.
Oh, Lord. Oh, that's right. That's the prostate book. I'm sorry. That's later. That's book 2. You've had 2 books, Brian. But it turns out the 2 is better than 1.
Guy starts making a lot of money. Next thing you know, he's lording it over everyone.
Yeah. Can I tell you about Ford Motor Company?
So I saw one of those Focus Titaniums on the road. That's a cool little car.
Oh, man. They're owning this space. Is the Titanium the electric one?
No, that's the Focus that's loaded to the gills with all the technology and the big wheels.
Cool.
And
man.
You can blast around town.
I want one of those. Actually, I'm very excited about the 2012 Ford Focus Electric. And, you know, it's kind of cool because they have a mobile app for the car. When you get the car, you get the mobile app. In fact, if you go right now to your Ford, you have to go to an EV-certified Ford dealer. Bring your smartphone because then you can test drive.
Do they have it on the Android?
They have an Android, they have BlackBerry, and they have iPhone.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know why they don't have Windows Phone because a lot of this is actually powered by Microsoft. For instance,
it's kind of curious. They actually demoed that app on a Windows Phone at CES. I think it was in 2011, but yet they don't actually have the app on Windows Phone available yet. So it's very curious.
Maybe it's just such a small market that I don't know.
It's hardly possible.
Yeah, they just didn't bother.
No Symbian?
No, they passed on Symbian. Anyway, I could go on and on, but I won't. Let's just point out that what this thing will do, for instance, is, I'll give you an example. When you drive a gas vehicle, a lot of the heat comes from the engine, right? But electric vehicle, you got to use the power in the battery to heat or cool. So one of the things you can do with the Ford mobile app is set the temperature, the cabin temperature in your car while it's still plugged in. You precondition it. And you can even set it for the time. Like if you leave every morning at 9, you could say, have that car be 72 degrees and ready to go.
I think it would do, or the phone could catch on fire. That would warm it up.
Yeah, I don't think we want that. You can also use their value charging feature. This is another Microsoft feature. The utilities send the data about their prices to the app, and the app then picks the best time to charge based on cost. So you always charge at the lowest cost. You can see what your current state of charge is. You can program when the charge will be. You can find, look at this shows you where charging stations are. You can even plan the most eco-friendly route. And then they also have done a little gamification. Is it gamification or gamification?
Gamification.
Gamification would be like something to do with legs.
Or gamma rays.
Gamification. They have a leaderboard online, the My Ford Mobile website, on who saved the most CO2. This is going to make John throw up.
Brother.
I love it. It's the kind of thing I'm going to do. You'll feel good driving.
It is the kind of thing you're going to do.
It is totally the kind of thing. I want to be number one on saving CO2. I'm going to drive the car. Is it more or less?
I'll tell. It's going to probably be a lot of. It's going to calculate a lot of hot air.
I got that. Go to Ford's website, Ford.com/technology. Find out more about the great 2012 Ford Focus Electric, available now. And coming in 2013, the plug-in hybrid, the Ford Fusion Energy. I think I'm going to get that one because I get a little extra range. Both of these vehicles just beautiful, elegant. Titanium sounds kind of cool, too.
Yeah,
it's a hot rod.
Both. They drive very well.
They drive nicely. Yeah, they're nice cars.
Yeah, the electric drives really well.
Yeah. Well, you
got to drive the electric?
I did, yes.
Did you have it for a while? How long did you have it for?
It was just a
you didn't get to take it for a week or something?
Yeah.
No, unfortunately not yet.
I'm on the list to buy one, but now I'm thinking I might wait up for. I don't know. I want them all.
How many cars do you need?
Not many.
You've got a hot Mustang.
I'm a block from. I live.
And you walk. You can walk to the office.
Hey, but if I got some of that Yammer money, can you believe this? Okay, so Instagram sells for $1 billion, so Microsoft buys Yammer for $1.25 billion. Well, this is basically a Twitter clone for enterprise social media.
Well, I wrote a Market Watch column about this particular deal.
Well, do you think this is a sensible deal?
No.
Microsoft has products like this already, just as they did with Skype.
I think it's an insult to the coders that work or the programmers that work at Microsoft. This was a make-buy decision.
I agree.
They should have been able to make this.
But they'd already made it.
Well, then, it's true. They could have repurposed it.
They have stuff in SharePoint that does exactly the same thing.
I think this is just a bad thing. I think it's a bad signal for people who are investors in Microsoft.
I agree.
Market
it's
Watch.
Not a very good product. We used Yammer for a while.
Oh, really?
And it just got to be to the point where it's just more noise, and we couldn't manage it very effectively. We couldn't set the policies very effectively on it, and we moved away from it. We just went back to email, basically.
There are other solutions out there too, but Microsoft has some pretty compelling solutions already. I'm not sure I really understand why they spent $1.25 billion.
That could be what the event is tomorrow. That we're going to show up there and they're going to say, "Hey,
we bought Yammer." Now, do you think, how credible, you said, John, that they're going to buy Nokia. How credible is that? Why would they buy Nokia? So they could be a standalone phone company?
Well, I believe that's a possibility because I think they want to do the Apple thing, obviously.
Make their own.
But I think they made a deal somewhere along the line to get Nokia to commit to their whole scheme. And Nokia did, and the fallback is, if you do fail, we'll bail you out.
We'll bail you out. And they are failing. There's no doubt about it.
And Nokia's down to like, what, $2 a share? It's like dirt cheap.
Yeah. It would be.
Heading to 50 cents.
Was I supposed to have heard of Yammer before this?
Yes, you should have.
No. That's the funny thing. Nobody ever heard. Actually, the only reason I've heard of it, TechCrunch, they won a TechCrunch, Crunchy, they were the number
Crunchy.
one. I don't know what the thing was. But they won a couple of years ago. They were the big pick for the TechCrunch. It wasn't Disrupt. It was the other TechCrunch thing.
No,
that's the only reason I know.
I could almost justify the expense if you're buying a name and a brand that would be of extreme value, but it doesn't sound like that's the case. It sounds like it's technology that they easily could have duplicated.
Well, let me ask the chat room, because maybe it's an enterprise brand. Is it a well-known enterprise brand, chat room? You've heard of it? All right. No, you've not heard of it? Some people have heard of it.
Facebook for Business.
According to reports, there's over 200,000 companies using it, including our last sponsor, Ford, using it, and eBay. So I don't know. I've never used it.
It's it's Facebook. It's an intranet, the next generation intranet,
right?
For people who apparently, I guess Microsoft can't code something like this, or it's prettier than Microsoft can do. I'm not absolutely sure why they bought it. It makes zero sense to me. Or they may have done it for the customer base. They do get the 200,000 corporations that have.
That's a large number.
And which
I gotta wonder how many of them are though like AOL, which said, "Well, we'll try it," and then
it gets that's I think is a big problem. And so they paid $5,000 per corporation for the product, and which means you have to have. I think I did this calculation. X number. You have to have 166 people in each one of these corporations to make it worth their while in terms of the $30 a head, which is typically what people are buying.
One problem with Yammer, and I bet this is what you were talking about, Tim, one of our chatters said, the only problem is you can't screen people out because it's people at your company. You can't say, I'm not going to friend you, Ariana, because you keep talking about your dogs.
It's been a while since we decided to move away from it, but as of about a year ago, it was very difficult to actually go in and manage users and say you can't see this discussion or you can't sign in anymore because you're no longer working with us. It was impossible to do it at that point, so that was one of the many reasons that we decided to just move away from it.
And Microsoft has a Skype product that's similar to Skype, but also has some chatting features, right? Link, is Link the same? So it just feels like they had this.
Well, they could have had it very easily. There's nothing that exciting going on at Yammer from a technology standpoint.
Right.
So certainly, if you're talking make versus build, I don't see why they don't have the engineers to build it themselves.
Wow. 15 indie developers reimagine Pong for iOS.
Pong. Always a winner.
I just like the headline. 15. They're hoping to win an Atari contract. It
takes 15?
It's the Pong Indie Developer Challenge. They had 90 submissions. They've pared it down to 15. I like that. I don't know why.
Do you remember, you probably never saw this, but back in early, like it must have been late 1993, early 1994, somebody put together Pong Combat. It was Mortal Kombat with Pong, where you could, you played Pong, but then you could go like up, up, down, left, and you would throw a fireball at the other guy.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So they had Pong with kill moves.
Yes, exactly. And
Just what you
there was
need.
even fatalities you could do at the end.
Fatality.
It was ridiculous.
Fatality.
Those are the games I end up buying. I think because our generation grew up with these great,
You want to see them
games.
again. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think the games I buy more on iOS or anywhere else on my Mac or whatever is these sort of classic games like Bard's Tale now.
That's a great game
in the App Store.
But that's fun because it's funny.
Right. I want Stronghold. I want Stronghold on my iPad. Although I want Firefly Studios. I've put this call out so many times. I've tweeted them. I've said, look, if there's one game that should be built on the iPad, it is Stronghold. Build castles, defend, but the original Stronghold, the awesome game.
What's that Missile Command where you blew up these things that are coming in? What was that game?
Missile Command.
Missile Command.
Yeah, that was on the Apple II. That would be perfect for an iPad.
I think there is an actual Missile Command on the. There's a whole Atari. There's Atari Arcade on the iPad that has Missile Command.
It's got all that crap.
And it's very true to the original.
So it's crap.
It's crap.
Yeah, fantastic.
Really quite. But there is this nostalgia thing. And this is because your generation is starting to grow up, Clayton. My generation, we didn't have this crap, but we had s'mores over a campfire. We had Dick Van Dyke. But you grew up with games, and so you kind of have this nostalgia, like for Mario, right? I don't get the Mario thing, but you guys love Mario.
And I said this right after E3. I thought, look, Nintendo's hurting, right? As evidenced by the Wii U. If there's one thing that I think Nintendo could do is put their whole lineup of NES games out for Android and iOS. I mean, I would play those. I would play Kid Icarus all night. My wife would have to yell at me nonstop. I would play those games for hours if I could get. I would play Super Mario Brothers on these devices for hours. But Metroid, you name it. But they're so afraid to do that.
And it would make $1 billion overnight if they did that, too. It would be a huge moneymaker. Right now, they're struggling to make money as they're investing in the Wii U, and there's a lot of doubt that the Wii U is going to be successful. And they have no plan at all for the mobile front, at least none of they're willing to tell anybody. They could do that pretty much overnight. They could bring in developers to port those things. Have them in the.
You mean get out of hardware entirely and just do iOS games?
Sega.
Not necessarily. I mean, this could be an augment to their hardware business.
Yeah, what are they now?
Nintendo's always said, we don't want to make hardware. We want to make great games, and maybe it is time for them to get out of the hardware business.
The difference is Sega didn't. They had Sonic. They had a few big titles, but Nintendo has.
The Dreamcast was a killer product. It's beautiful.
It was.
And the guy on a whim The CEO, we're out, we're done.
No. It wasn't on a whim. It was because they had made too many products in too short of a time. Because the years leading up to the Sega Dreamcast gets a bad rap because before that you had the Sega CD. The SGX? Is that what it was? You had the
Sega Saturn was the one before.
The Saturn was the bad one.
They were coming out with something new, and then finally, when the Dreamcast came out, they just didn't have the capital, even though everybody loved it, and then it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah, that was the big problem. It was internet based, and that was really before there was much of an internet to go to. Really, it was definitely ahead of its time. It was launched early. It was a great console. I mean, I did my college thesis writing games for the VMU, which was that tiny little Game Boy thing you could plug into the controller. I love the Dreamcast, but yeah, sadly, that was the end of the road for Sega.
Wow, I'm getting sad now. Get sad. I want to talk about Vizio in a second. Very interesting article Nilay Patel wrote for The Verge. He visited Vizio. And Vizio is coming out. I'm sure you've seen these, Tim. I haven't seen them yet, with an all-in-one computer and some pretty compelling-looking laptops and some very interesting philosophies, including no crap and no stickers.
No crap?
I know.
No stickers.
It's unheard of. How could you sell a computer without crap and stickers? We'll find out.
I don't know how the crap ties into their light bulbs that they said that they'd be making. Last year, that was their big push. They're going to make light bulbs.
Oh, really?
Right.
I guess they dropped that.
Yeah. I remember seeing them at the CEA
Vizio light
in
bulbs?
New York, and they had like the home sort of these light bulbs. I think didn't they have like speakers built in them or something? Tim?
They said, hey, we've got this great new thing. We're going into this new market. It's going to be amazing. You guys, it sounded almost like this Microsoft thing. Hey, we've got this great event. We're not going to tell you anything about it. You got to come see it. And then it's light bulbs.
Yeah, it was sort of like what Google announced with that home automation stuff. And you have like, you can have a light bulb that talks to you and stuff like that. You're like, really?
So that they pivoted apparently, and they decided the PC is really where it's at.
In the right direction. It's safe to say.
Yeah, good pivot. Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to mention quickly FreshBooks.com, the really easy to use online invoicing app for small businesses. But really was always a problem for me making my own invoices. I had it set up to make it as easy as possible, but it was such a pain. I would put it off, and then I wouldn't get paid. Then Amber MacArthur in 2004, I remember this very well, told me about FreshBooks.com. It's online. It was one of the first Web 2.0 sites. Makes it really easy to create invoices, email them. The clients can view invoices and pay you right on the spot with a credit card, which is fantastic. Turns out it's not the clients don't want to pay you. It's just as much of a pain for them to go through all of that as it was for you to create the invoice. Make it easy for them, they're going to pay you. If you do time and hours, billable hours, you could turn timesheets instantly into invoices. All sorts of great reports. In fact, come tax time, it couldn't be easier if you've been using FreshBooks. Your accountant will absolutely love you. And if you do have the clients that are a little slow to pay, they can have automated late payment reminders. You set the date, 30, 60, 90. And for a small fee, FreshBooks will even print and mail physical invoices. There are a few clients that like that paper, complete with a return envelope. iPhone app will track your time and hours as well as their web-based. I want you to try it free. You sign up right now. You'll get 30 days of unlimited use. Everything. All the features, as many clients as you want, as much staff, everything. No limits. You just go to FreshBooks.com. If they ask you, I think there's one point in the sign-up to say, where'd you hear about it? Mention TWiT, and we'll get a little credit for that. 30 days free of the best invoicing service out there. Since I started using it in 2004, 3.5 million people have. And I'll tell you, FreshBooks has been a great experience. I'm sure you will love it. FreshBooks.com. So according to Mike McRae, who's the CTO at Vizio, we've all seen Vizio in the big box stores or Walmart. They were the kind of the second-tier TV stuff. It was really good TVs, very good price. I've always liked the Vizio TVs. They've announced PCs, and he said it was really hard to convince the Intel and Microsoft not to put stickers. He says, I really hate opening a PC and seeing stickers and flashing LEDs all over the place. They also forego the crapware that most PC manufacturers put on there because they make some money. So you don't have all. I think this sounds great. Now, have you guys, anybody received any of these Vizios yet? They look gorgeous. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, we had them in our studios the other day, and they are beautiful. I mean, look, it's like you're looking at MacBook.
Yeah.
I mean, look, let's be honest. It's like you're looking right at a MacBook Air. The all-in-one was really, really stunning, and it's a really compelling desktop look. And
there were complaints early on about the keyboard. They did swap that out and tried something else. I haven't gotten to play with it the laptops look cool, although I think all of the Ultrabooks kind of look like MacBook Airs to me.
I mean, is that bad?
Well, no, the Air is exactly
when you get down to that size. You don't have much of a choice in design.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but you don't have to do I mean, it's unibody aluminum. It's wedge shaped. I mean, there's some choice. You don't have to make it look exactly like a MacBook Air.
You know, I thought what was really, really interesting about Nilai's piece, and by the way, congratulations, Nilai, who just got
married today.
This week. Yeah. So it was a really good piece, and I thought what was interesting about it more than anything else was the amount of people, at least I think separate from the piece, but who just do Google searches to find out where Vizio is made, because everyone assumes it's a foreign company,
right?
And it's not. And
well,
so
he says that, but we should point out it's made in China like everything else. It's just that the people who design
the marketing people and
the most of the employees are in Irvine.
True. So you have 400 employees. I think the point, and the part.
It's a U.S. company. Yeah,
right. It's a U.S. company, but I don't think a lot of people knew that.
No, nobody knows that, I think. What do you think, Tim? Have you played with the new Vizios?
I haven't had a chance to yet. I was out in San Francisco for WWDC during the announcement, so no, I didn't get to see them myself. But the impressions, we had Sarah Silbert go out and check them out, and she said they look fantastic. So, one question I have is about durability. Apple's had issues, when they first introduced the Air. They had a lot of reliability problems. This is a big first step for Vizio. I don't want to be down on the brand. It's a great first step. They look fantastic, but we'll see how they hold up.
It's more than just looks, and I agree with you 100%. And in fact,
it's distribution. I mean, they got Walmart, right? I mean, that's the big deal. I mean, the fact that we have a Vizio television in our living room at home, and love it, absolutely love it. And we spent a lot of time doing research, on different different TVs that we wanted, and we ended up going with this one, and we love it. And you go into Walmart, it's there, Vizio, and now they're going to have the distribution in Walmart, and that is huge.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, if you ask me, they can't rip off Apple fast enough.
You want a Windows 7 PC that feels like a MacBook Air? There are quite a few now.
It's disgraceful that it's taken the PC market this long to rip off what are obviously great ideas from Apple, and it's like finally you got the closest I've seen is the Razer. I'm showing it to you right now. The Razer Blade. You see this? It just clearly looks like a MacBook Pro, only it's got and
it's priced like a MacBook Pro. Holy cow!
Right, and
Too
it's
expensive.
Gorgeous. It's amazing, and also underpowered and overpriced, much like Apple. So it's like
they've caught up.
The faster we can bring this to the PC, the happier I'm going to be.
I think,
and the less. Oh, anyway, go on.
Most of us are in agreement that the Asus Transformer is the one, right? Actually, this is not it. There's another one. There's that's more of a. Asus seems to own this. What Ultrabook do you like, Tim? Is there one that you like?
The Samsung Series 9, I guess, would be my choice.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued about the Lenovo's upcoming Ultrabook, which has a carbon fiber case, and I'm a big Lenovo fan, so I'm curious about that one. I haven't had a chance to play with that myself. But right now, I'd say the Series 9.
I
use the Dell with the carbon fiber case.
Yeah, the Dell's pretty nice. We've looked at that. I haven't seen the either Lenovo or the new Samsung, so we'll have to take a look at those. Somebody reviewed the Samsung, I think, here. No? We haven't got that one yet. We'll get it. Good article by Roger Chang at CNET. 5 blunders. I don't think you could disagree with any of these that put Nokia in the hot seat. Number 1, they never jumped on the flip phone bandwagon. They kept making candy bar phones when Motorola was eating their lunch with the flip phone. Number 2, it ignored the U.S. market. You remember Nokia? You ended up having to buy an unlocked, unsubsidized Nokia phone because they didn't have any carriers for the smartphones anyway.
For me.
I think that's the biggest mistake that they made, too, because they've had to really work really hard to develop all these relationships that they could have and should have had for years now with these launches of the Lumia products in the U.S. They've had to go back to these wireless carriers in the U.S. and develop all new deals from scratch, and they've found that they haven't been getting much respect from these carriers in their retail placement and everything else, too. I think that's all endemic of them ignoring them for all these years.
Now you like us. It failed to recognize the threat of the iPhone. They weren't alone in that.
I'm not buying these arguments.
You got to agree with this. Clung to Symbian too long.
Well, that's because they owned it and they figured, well, we paid for it. We might as well.
We bought it. And finally, it chose the wrong next generation platform to back. Remember Memo? And then they made the Migo. And then I had an N9. I don't know what happened to my N9. I actually bought an N9. What a fool I was.
It's a great phone.
It is a great phone. If you like
Dying
Migo.
platform. Dead platform.
Yeah.
But great phone.
Well, the Lumia is basically an N9 with Windows Mobile on it. Windows
More
Phone.
or less, yeah. Unfortunately, with some of the hardware stripped back a little bit to support the restrictions of Windows Phone. But yeah, ultimately, in terms of design and design language, it's much the same device.
Tomorrow, they won't get any credit or publicity. Nokia is going to announce the emergence of this new, 43-megapixel phone in the U.S.?
Well, that's stupid. I need a 43-megapixel phone.
I played with it. It's actually the PureView 808.
I love the pixel count.
It's 43 megapixels.
We got a little plastic lens and 46 and 40 plus megapixels.
And it's kind of thick. They're not showing the side view, but it's got
a huge sensor in there.
It's got a big sensor. 41 megapixels. What happens though with it is it downsamples it to a smaller size. What do you think? Is this going to be Tim? You got your hands on the hot PureView?
No, unfortunately, we're running a limited operating system here. It's not any of the big three, which is unfortunate. The camera is outrageous, though, and I think that this is probably more of a statement about what you're going to expect from Nokia devices going forward on Windows Phone. And in that regard, it's a great thing because the sensor is unbelievable. We did a lot of testing with the thing, and the photos are far and away the best of any device that we've seen, any smartphone, I should say.
Tim,
so hopefully Windows Phone will be having something like this in the future.
Tim, there's no way. Okay, when you start leapfrogging the number of megapixels from DSLRs, there's no way that the physical optics are able to match it. Is this a smart move to move into the turf of dedicated camera devices?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't lead for a thicker device, as you mentioned, Leo. It is a kind of a chunky phone. But absolutely, people are taking more pictures with their phones than with any other device right now. They've pretty much killed the compact camera market. And if you can take DSLR quality images, which this isn't quite there, but it's
pretty good. It's better than point and shoot, I would say.
If you can really leave your camera at home and be comfortable that you can get great photos, and if you can have it such a high resolution that you don't really need an optical zoom, I think that's part of it too. Because, it's hard to fit an optical zoom in a phone and have it be pocketable. But if you have a ridiculous amount of megapixels, you can just do a digital zoom and still have it look fantastic. And that's part of the thinking here.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say this is going to be as big a success as Microsoft Kin.
I wish, I saw somebody had one of these Kins and they sent it back. I said, this is the collector's item of all time.
I actually like the Kin.
Yeah, because Microsoft won't confirm that they only sold like 500 of them. So I'm hanging on to the Kin.
You have one?
I think it's going to come back. Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. I'm jealous. I need more junk in my house.
You see the photos that thing takes.
Kid.
First PC-only game at the top of the list since 2010. Diablo 3 Blizzard proves the PC is not dead when it comes to gaming. No console version of this one. I actually have a lot of fun playing it.
What do you have time to do this?
I actually been doing it on the air.
Oh. You played on the air?
Played on the air.
Yeah. In fact, we had somebody come in. There is a cow level for this game. Did you know that, Brian? There's a cow level for Diablo 3?
No, that sounds
cow
awesome.
Level. Cow?
I already finished it once with the multiplayer, but I'm going back and playing it again, hardcore version.
I'm in nightmare mode myself, 37 monk. Stand back. Oh, I call him Grasshopper.
So the real story on this one, if you ask me, is this is a loud acknowledgement of the failure of NPD Group to measure the right statistics. Because the reason that this is news is because NPD only measures physical hardware sales or physical software sales. Like you have to go to GameStop and buy stuff.
Nobody buys software anymore.
Does not get counted.
Right.
Everything that's sold as virtual goods in Farmville does not get counted.
Oh.
So for years, you've heard these bogus claims that NPD is saying like PC gaming's dead, bro, because the areas that we're looking at that are not the ones where all the actions are happening, there's no action. So therefore, that means PC gaming is dead. And I'm glad that this story's out there for no other reason than to say, number one, yes, even by those horribly skewed metrics by NPD, PC gaming is still doing fine. But on top of that, understand that this does not even count Steam, and Steam is the #1 gaming platform. It's bigger than Xbox.
Good point.
Bigger than Sony. It's bigger than Nintendo. PC gaming is doing fine. Thank you very much.
Hey, can I ask you a question? What is that behind you?
The BB logo? That's my initials.
Brian?
Yeah, no, I get that, but what is it? Is it looks like a wall, or is this a green screen? You've got something rigged there. You seem to have you're in a studio.
He is. He does a show from there.
I'm deep in my underground bunker right now.
Why is there only the bricks and the cement? It looks like somebody didn't even take the grout out after they'd done this thing. Very cheap production.
It was sloppy work. We had to build it very.
I think you could call that contractor up.
That's skeuomorphism right there.
This was built by Chad Johnson. He designed this set, and it's fantastic. I love it.
Chad, is that actually mortar?
I spray painted that BB logo.
Is that actual mortar?
It actually uses the magic of television. It's
Chad, you tell him, Chad. Chad was going to build this out of actual concrete until his high school teacher was like, "Are you high? That's the worst idea ever."
Yeah. So that's actually foam. It's made out of styrofoam. And there's more foam. That's what the grout looks like.
It's very good looking. You really did a good job. It looks very realistic.
Yeah, it took like 7 hours to stencil out that BB logo.
And then right after that, you quit, Brian, and came to work for us.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Good move, Chad.
So finally, the other shoe drops. Draw Something is going to be a primetime TV show. Now we know why Zynga spent $210 million for OMG Pop for a game that was at its peak and declined immediately after they bought it. It's going to be a TV show.
Happen.
Ryan Seacrest Productions in a joint venture with Sony Pictures Television and Embassy Row.
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
No, you know what?
It's a winner.
Wasn't
Remember
there
Pictionary?
Yeah, wasn't there a Pictionary TV show?
Yeah, sure, back in like 1997 or something.
Win, lose, or draw. That's it.
Yeah, no,
but there was a Pictionary television show.
So they've tried this before.
Yeah, and I remember I loved it. They I think it was like Alan Thicke hosted it or something. Remember that? They had the big paper and they had like celebrities on the couch.
That was Win, Lose, or Draw, wasn't that?
Oh,
no,
I don't.
That was Pictionary. All right, okay. 15 years in prison if you're caught using Skype in Ethiopia. Just a word of warning, John.
I was just heading there too.
Stop it.
Can't do my show.
Can't do the show there. Well, it's all right. We'll make an exception.
Is there a rationale for this idiocy?
I don't know. It's bad.
Well, I mean, essentially, it's to keep it's so the government can have the power, and this is something you guys should talk about on No Agenda. It's so the government can
NoAgendaShow.com
to listen to every single conversation because they have the telephone company in their pockets, and they don't like the fact that people can use the internet to conduct phone calls. 83 million people are now essentially behind this great firewall where they can't talk.
It's terrible.
Without having the government monitor their conversations. This is horrifying, and this is why we need the internet to be free.
They can't use Google Voice. Any internet phone conversation is illegal and is punishable by 3 to 8 years in prison plus fines. That's terrible. Necessary to protect against security threats. It's
Ethiopia?
Yeah. I want to thank you so much for being here, Mr. Brian Brushwood. Scam School Book 2 is out, or will be out. When? Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay, so here's the thing. You know, Leo, that we tried to scam our way to the top of the charts by having everybody buy on the exact same day.
How'd that work for you?
I'm making no bones about this. This is a fraudulent effort to try to cheat our way to the #1 spot on either Amazon or iTunes.
And it's probably illegal in Ethiopia. We should just warn all our Ethiopian viewers.
Correct. But are you ready for this? We figured out a way to take the scam one step farther because somebody said, and this is essentially voter fraud, which is why I'm excited about it. Somebody said, how do I buy more than one copy? And the answer is, well, I guess you could gift it to people. It's like, well, who do I gift it to? And the answer is, it's like you could gift it to fake accounts, and that would be cheating. But there's tons of people who want the book for free, and so that's why we've created the Scam School Scholarship Fund. If you go to scamschoolscholarship.com, you can either apply for a scholarship to get the book for free, Or you can sponsor someone and buy the book for them, either on iTunes or on Amazon. Head on over to scamschoolscholarship.com and let's defraud Amazon to make this book the #1 bestseller.
I wish you luck. Gosh darn it. Creative as always. Brian Brushwood. NSFW continues to harass the hams every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern time on TWiT.tv. It's the worst collision of cultures ever.
I love it.
In broadcast media.
And by the way, I've got to give a huge thanks because Bob Heil's the one who tuned into NSFW and was like, you guys aren't using Heil microphones. That's a disgrace. Just give me your address. Let's fix that immediately.
He's good about that, I got to say.
Yeah.
So right after Ham Nation, it's NSFW. And the punks run the old guys out of the shop and take over. Thank you, Brian, for being here.
In all seriousness, Leo, this is a real thing.
I know.
You
Scam
just go
School Scholarship.
You click in, you type in your name, and then you're able to get a free copy, or you're able to get, let's say you wanted to sponsor someone, you could sponsor someone there, and then we're gonna hit #1, or I'm gonna die trying.
Yeah, pump it.
Scam School Scholarship Fund. I love it.
Pump it.
Pump it. John C. Dvorak pumps it on No Agenda Show twice weekly. Now twice weekly.
Yeah, we just decided to do it on Thursday now. So we do Thursday and Sunday.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Google No Agenda, and you'll see what we're talking about.
I have a big bottom in the basement. I'll give it to you, and you should do, next time you're on with Adam, turn it on, and he'll go, "What the heck happened here? You've got a big bottom." Big bottom.
I know the device.
Tim Stevens is the editor-in-chief of Engadget. Really, really done a great job. In fact, I just read an article recently and said that you are the unsung hero of tech journalism. So thank you for the job you do.
Flattering piece. Thank you.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Thank you for being here, Tim. Really appreciate it.
For having me.
Thanks to Clayton Morris, who is the tech guy on Fox and Friends. You have a weird schedule. You work today. You work Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, God.
Every day? Do you work every day?
I don't know. I'm always covering tech in some capacity. So, yeah, but this morning I did the show, so 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
But you did get beer donuts.
I had beer donuts. That's right. And then I got on the road and came and did this show. So
Thank you.
Always great to
Well, I appreciate it because I know it's Father's Day, and I'm sure you have stuff to do, and you're at your dad's. And gosh, I feel very grateful that all of you could be here on Father's Day. So thank you, Clayton, for being here.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Tom Merritt has a look at the week ahead. What's coming up, Tom?
Hey, thanks, Leo. Here's a look at some of the things we'll be covering on Tech News Today in the week ahead. Monday, June 18th, AT&T Samsung Galaxy S3 starts shipping, and Microsoft has a secret major announcement in L.A. Is it going to be a tablet? Who knows? Tuesday, June 19th, Le Web kicks off in London. Sarah Lane will be there reporting. And Wednesday, June 20th, the Canon EOS 1DX is set to launch, but supplies will be limited. And the Windows Phone Developer Summit starts. We're supposed to get more details on the next version of the Windows Phone operating system. Also on Wednesday, Giga-Ohm Structure takes place. Friday, June 22nd, the HP Envy Spectre XT ships, and the iPhone 4S comes to Cricket Wireless in the United States. That's a look at the week ahead. Back to you, Leo.
Thank you, Tom. Tom will be here tomorrow afternoon. We'll cover live beginning at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time, right after TNT. I guess what we'll do is we'll just do Tech News Today, which is at 3 every afternoon. Right after Tech News Today, we'll go into our live coverage to find out what Microsoft is going to announce tomorrow. Won't we all be chagrined if it's a new mouse or something? That'll be interesting, but you do tune in tomorrow for the live coverage. And thanks to everybody for being here. Great studio audience. Again, I tell you, we get people here all the time. It's really fun. Email my sister, Eva, at twit.tv if you'd like to be in the studio audience. We'd love to have you. And, of course, we love having you watch live. We do it 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 2200 UTC every Sunday. You watch live, be in the chat room, and that's a lot of fun. And if you can't, of course, we make audio and video available after the fact at twit.tv. We are changing the format of the smaller of the two video files next week or this week. Next week, I think. I'm not sure. You can find out more at twit.tv/watch. That format will still be in H.264, but we're using a more modern profile, and that will, unfortunately, break some older devices like, for instance, the second-generation iPod Touch. So if you go to twit.tv/watch, We've got all the information there, including the devices that we know won't work, and most modern devices will, and some sample files so you can see if your device will work. And the reason I mention this is because iTunes, if it says, oh, I can't play that back, won't tell you, won't warn you, and won't sync. So you just won't get a file, and you won't be able to listen to the show, or watch the show, I should say. So check that out if you do have an older device, an iPod Classic, an iPod Touch 2G or older, iPhone 3G or older, a Nano 4G or older, Android 2.0 or older, some Android 2.1 and 2.2 devices, and Windows Mobile 6.5 and older. Those devices will not be able to play back that feed. The mobile feed will always work, so you can subscribe to that. That'll work on all devices. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Another TWiT is in the can. Bye-bye. Dead silence from the audience. Woo!